Thank you. Morning, everyone. I'd like to call a meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Inuit, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. I'll introduce the members of the panel via Zoom, Ms. Carrie Linkletter and Mr. Harvey Diamond. My name is Stu McPherson. I'll be chairing the hearing. Representing the City of Winnipeg Assessment Taxation Department is Ms. Victoria Ho, and the administrative personnel is Ms. Francisca Picotto. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you're placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it's your turn, you'll be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You'll then be permitted to speak with respect to your property, and once your hearing is concluded, you can leave the meeting. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested has been described in each application. We'll limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony. Anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council. It's independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I'll confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We'll then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they so wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decision. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. Just as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 2, 3, and 5 through 8 on our docket today. Ms. Picotto, would you please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony? First, I guess, would be item 2. Is there a representative for that property?
No, not at this moment.
We will move that to the back of the docket then. We'll begin with item number 3, which is 288 William. And if you would please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Certainly. Madam Assessor, please state your full name.
Victoria Ho.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Art McCoubry.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. It was Mr.
It's
Barton.
Art McCoubry.
Nakubri.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
You.
So you're here representing the owners of 288 William Avenue, and it's the amount of assessed value for the 2025 realty assessment that you're contesting?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Hull, when you're ready, we'll hear your evidence, please.
Okay, for file number 24-225, for roll number 130609610000 for address 288 William Avenue. The current value under dispute is for the roll year 2025, a reference date of April 1st, 2023, for an assessed value of $1,112,000. We currently have this property assessed as a commercial store. That's one story, built in 1948. Overall land area is 4,416. There is no basement area for this property. This is located in the Exchange District, not the Exchange District, but downtown Winnipeg, under those with character zoning. Just letting you know, I did not do an inspection of this property, so items were not made aware until speaking to the representative, particularly regarding to the valuation. So if you want to see my page, we can go on to page 3. You can see there's an overall aerial view and an old Google Street View of the property, which used to have the Ms. Browns. On to my page 4, we have information requests and received. We have a subject to sale history of sworn value of $3,800,000. That was part of I believe that was part of a portfolio sale or transfer of ownerships. I have some rent comparables that range between $11.25 to $21 per square feet. And if you continue on to my page 6, it's a detailed breakdown of both premises, which is each unit is 2,100 square feet. The rent per square feet for the restaurant portion is $21.91, and for the other side is $18.41, giving a potential rent of $82,572. We have a vacancy loss of 5%. We have a 3% expenses, $7 for shortfall. We have a 6.8 capitalization rate, which would give it a $1,112,000. However, it is brought to light that there is some structural issues with the property. From discussing with the representative, there was no written quotes provided, so I was not able to determine how much of a detriment the value should be, how much of the value would be affected. So just to provide you, given that the current condition of the property, $1,112,000 is quite high, given the condition of the property. The $1,112,000 would be as if it was fully operational and in proper condition. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nakupri, you have questions for the assessor?
Just one pertaining to vacancy rate. You've used a vacancy rate of 5%, which we believe is too low. I'm not at great odds with you, but I would just get on the record that in 2023, the Downtown Biz produced a document that estimated the ground floor vacancy rate in downtown Winnipeg is over 30%. And
Mr. Nakupri, sorry to interrupt you, but you'll have an opportunity to present your evidence. If you would
I'm sorry. Yes.
Stick with questions at this point, please.
Yeah. What did you use to come up with 5% vacancy rate in your estimate?
So 5% is the model rate that's provided by the model for, I believe, for all retail in the city. So it's not just specifically just for downtown. It's just an overall market rate that's been blanketed for the use for retail stores.
Thank you. That's the only question I had for the assessor.
I thank you. Mr. Diamond, questions for the assessor?
Yeah, well, I guess one question, I know it's small, but I see that the gross floor area is less than the leasable area. How does that happen? We have I know it's close, it's 4,154 with leasable area of 4,200. So just how you get more leasable area than you do have the actual area in the building.
Probably data transfer was done incorrectly. Thank you for letting me know. I will correct that and do another review of the property record.
Okay, I think that's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diamond. Ms. Linklater? I'm sorry, are you muted perhaps?
I was muted. No, it's.
Thank you.
I'm Mr. Chair, I'm using my phone, so it's a little tricky. Anyway, Ms. Ho, I just have a couple of questions. First of all, was your brief model driven?
Yes, it was model driven.
Okay, thank you. And you also stated that you had not inspected the property yourself?
No, I had not been able to did not inspect the property. However, it was brought to light by the representative that there is structural issues and possibly detriment issues with the roof. He'll be discussing a little bit more about the cost a little bit later.
All right. Can you tell me in your notes when the property was last inspected?
Not that I can recall. I don't have that in my notes.
Okay. Just one more question. I was just curious. You stated that the building did not have a basement.
No,
So is it a slab?
I think it's a slab.
All right. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you.
Is the property currently occupied?
There is there's on the opposite side of where that, if you saw the picture on my page 3, I believe, of the old Google Street View, there is the Ms. Brown's. That's the unoccupied unit. And then the other side is currently being occupied by a coffee shop.
Okay, now I see that you've got two different rates.
Yes.
Are they not both restaurants space?
No, restaurants in what we would consider is like something like with substantial like HVAC that's installed and like an actual full-on kitchen. A coffee shop really doesn't need that. It's more like it could be more of a retail front, and it requires less intensive upfront costs to install. So you could just put in an espresso machine, hook up some water lines, and there you go. You don't need to worry about having a heavy HVAC to take out all the smoke and maintain the air and cooling.
Okay, so the half of the building is set up for occupying as a restaurant,
Yes,
and the other half is not. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Thank you. Mr. Nakorby, we'll hear from you, please.
Thank you. Just a little bit of background on this property. It was operating as Miss Brown's restaurant, and it was fully fit out. And then in February 23, it had a catastrophic structural collapse on the east side of the building. The building was ordered vacated by the city of Winnipeg because of its unsafe conditions. The owners, and it's a group of family members spread across the country, but collectively, they had to make a decision on what to do with the building at that time. They got initial estimates that the cost of repair would be $410,000. I've since received information that they're about halfway through the improvements and they've firmed up all the quotes. This is post April 1, 23, but current best information is the final estimate. And they've given me the receipts and everything is going to be 388,000 is going to be the new total to repair the building. So they thought about, do we demolish the building and build a new building, because it's an old building and it's hard to spend $388,000 fixing an old building, but they came to the conclusion that the cost of demolition and the relative value of the land and the fact that it is neighbored on both sides by heritage buildings would complicate rebuilding. So they collectively made the decision that it was more economically prudent to just bite the approximate $400,000 expense. So our appeal today deals with not only this catastrophic failure where we think that should be deducted from the assessment, but also we thought the assessment was too high, notwithstanding the damage. So as far as the damage goes, I just want to point out to the panel that this will be a one-time offset. When the next assessment cycle comes up, these repairs are all done and it'll be assessed at the appropriate rate at that time. But if we're looking at its market value, April 1st, 23, it's a structurally impaired building requiring approximately $400,000 to repair. And with typical lag vacancy in the Exchange District, even after you go through a year of repairs, you need plumbers, electricians, engineers. There's a lot of different specialties involved in repairing that building. But even after you go through that, you're looking at a lag vacancy of at least 6 months. So it's essentially impaired for an entire 2-year period, which would cover 24, 25, probably part of 26. Now, assuming that hopefully that we can deduct that impairment and just to circle back, this wasn't in any way deferred maintenance or a maintenance issue. This was an out of the blue collapse of an old building. So it was an unexpected one-time structural impairment. So to be corrected for the next assessment cycle. But anyway, to move on, I'd like to bring your attention, please, to my page 11. And this is a side-by-side comparison between our analysis and the assessment department's analysis. And as you can see quickly, we agree with the cap rate at 6.8%. So we have no issue with that. The special considerations at the bottom of that chart will be for you to decide whether that's to be deducted or not. So that's a yes or a no kind of thing. I certainly do have all the bills here that can be reviewed.
I'm sorry, did we lose our feet?
What's the title of that page?
This is page number 11 on my Board of Revision submission.
Yeah, I was looking at page 11 here. It doesn't.
My number 11, so you might come up different in the PDF document.
So the number 11 on the bottom of the page, not the number 11 of the PDF.
Okay.
Are we all at that page?
Yep.
So just to, if everybody's there, the cap rate, 6.8% is an agreement. The structural impairment, hopefully we'll be allowed to reduce that for this one assessment cycle. So we're really left with the only three areas of contention. If I could start with the market rent, where I've got it $15 per square foot. And the assessor has that quite a bit higher at $19.91. If I can refer you, and again, these are my page numbers rather than the PDF page numbers. I could refer you to pages 5 and 6, where I've made comparisons to what I think very luckily are 4 restaurants within 2 blocks of the subject property. And in rental analysis, we tend to gross up all the rents because additional rent has such an impact on base rent. So from this analysis, we deduce that the total rent a tenant would be willing to pay, base rent and additional rent, would be $22 a foot. The cost of their additional rent is calculated to be $7. This is calculated from actual expenses, actual financial statements. So the net rent, which everybody wants to work with, it's the simplest, the net rent on this property should be $15. If you were gonna have $19.91 as the base rent, you would, and you're collecting $7 of additional rent, you'd be up to $27 of total rent. And when I say total rent, the analysis excludes utilities. So additional rent is just the tenant's proportionate share of property taxes, proportionate share of insurance. So it's hard to look at net rent in isolation. You have to look at net rent plus additional rent equals total rent. And we estimate total rent in the subject property at $22 with some excellent comparables. And then when we work that backwards, if you're paying $22 total rent and $7 worth of additional rent for taxes, insurance, snow removal, you work that backwards, that's a net rental rate of $15. And in my opinion, it's very strongly supported by these comparable sale properties. We can see the first two are at King Street. They're paying total rent, excluding utilities, of $23 and $24. These are really new, built in 2010 with 12-foot ceilings, really fit out nicely. This is a Chisabi restaurant, if you ever eat there, and King and Bannatyne restaurant. These are fit out really, really nice. These are top-end restaurants. And Bronuts. So they're paying $23 and $24 in total rent, which equates in our instance to roughly $15 net. So moving on, you know, we feel strongly that that's the best we could get net rent. And the vacancy rate, although I wanted to point out that the ground floor vacancy rate in downtown Winnipeg is estimated to be in excess of 30%. I concede that vacancies, as all vacancy is, it tends to be concentrated in the really low quality stock and low quality locations. But still, 7.5% is much more reasonable for the location we have here. And then lastly, the non-recoverable expenses, there's a vacancy shortfall. I see I've made an error that I included leasing commissions just out of, we always do, but I understand that the municipal board has ruled that those are not to be included. So the submission I made would change. The net operating income should be increased by the amount of the leasing commissions. So that would be increased by, call it $1,200. So it would change my submission. So I can make that changes right here. We can just pen those in. And perhaps I should even make the change to the cost of restoring the subject property now that better information has come to light. So I just received this last night, or I would have put it in the submission. So I had asked for it and I didn't receive it. They're just so busy there. So I went with the 410 on the repairs. Now we know it to be 388 though we obviously have the benefit of looking backwards in time. On April 1st, it was thought to be 410. Now it's known to be 388, the cost of repairs, but I would concede to the 388. And that's my entire submission. Thank you.
I thank you. Ms. Ho, questions for the applicant?
So I just want to clarify, when you mean by modified gross on your page, sorry, I'm scrolling up and down. I should have printed this.
Yeah. Modified gross in this instance is just for comparison purposes. I know we may do things different than the assessment department did, but just to explain the rationale behind that is that if you have somebody paying net rent of $15 and additional rent of $10, they're essentially paying $25 per foot plus utilities.
So the additional rent, you mean, is that recoveries then for the property owner?
Yes, exactly. Tenant recoveries or additional rent. And that has a huge impact on estimating net rent because additional rent can have a huge variation. And from a tenant's perspective, they think more in modified gross terms. They don't care if base rent's $10 and additional rent's $10. They just know the rent's $20. So if we're going to look at the $15 net rent, that is calculated with the understanding that additional rent on the subject property is $7. And we know it to be $7 because we have financial statements going back. On this property, I probably have 6 years of financial statements to calculate what additional rent is on that property. So $7 is right in the wheelhouse. It's not an unusual additional rent. But if we know by market comparison that the total rent this property can achieve is $22 a foot, and we know that additional rent, tenant recovery is $7 that tenants have to pay, it's ergo base rent should be $15 a
Yeah.
foot.
I just want to double check. So your comparable C, the one on Princess, that
Yes.
at 1,800 square feet, that is a true net rent then?
The one that is the Deer and Almond restaurant, if you're familiar with it. And it's, pardon me. That is the one on Princess Street. No, their base rent, their net rent is $22. And then their additional rent's only $469. So their total rent is $26.69. Whereas I'm estimating our total rent at $22. They have some advantages. They're a standalone business on a busy corner, and they have a full basement, which they are using in the storage and even kitchen facilities down there. So in my mind, them paying $26.69 supports my estimate of total rent of $22 per hour. $22 again being synonymous with $15 rent. So.
And one more question. This is in regards to your non-recoverable expenses percentage, 12%, around 12%.
Yeah.
How was that attained?
The non-recoverable expenses are broken down on my page 9, and the vacancy shortfall is simply calculated that if you are assuming the property is going to be vacant 7.5% of the time, you're also assuming that additional rent, proportionate share of taxes, proportionate share of insurance, that won't be collected 7.5% of the time. So that we know recoverable expenses are $7 a foot. So we know that the vacancy shortfall is going to be 7.5% times $7 times the size of the building. The major repair allowance is pretty standard. I don't know if there's some assessment guidelines that you expect buildings to fall within, but the 4% of EGI, effective gross income, is kind of an industry standard outside of the assessment field. Normalized tenant improvements, every time somebody's lease comes up for renewal, they expect new light fixtures, new finished flooring, a dust up, coat of paint. When tenants change over on a building like this, you expect the landlord to spend $20 to $25 per foot on tenant improvements. Every tenant wants it fit out their own way. So those are normalized over time. Because we're capping it in perpetuity, this is a normalized tenant improvement. Sometimes, many years you'll have no tenant improvements. Some years you'll have 40,000 tenant improvements. So again, 2.5% of EGI is normal. The normalized lease commission showing at 1166 is in error. I didn't know that we were not permitted to include that.
So just to clarify, you're also aware that we don't include tenant improvements according to case law from the municipal board.
Okay, so that should be parsed out as well.
Yeah.
So my net income would then increase by $2,623, it looks like, adding it in my head. But I should just check that. Yeah, so if we parse that out and just Ms. Ho, would you agree with the vacancy shortfall and the structural allowance? Is that?
Yeah, our structural allowance is, I think, is under other in my brief.
Okay.
That's usually I think we have this reassessment at 3%.
If I could just use a couple of minutes of your time, I'm just going to make these corrections. So,
Yes, please do.
so the new NOI in my model would be 53,740, and that's removing tenant improvements and removing lease commissions. So 53,740 divided by what are we using? 6.8.0. So 40 divided by 4.68. So 53,740 capped at 0.068 is, never use your phone as a calculator, it's terrible. 53,740 divided by 0.068. So that comes out to $790,000 if there was no structural impairment. So if we correct the structural impairment to best evidence is now 388. So 790 minus 388. My final submission would be an assessed value of $402,000. And again, I know the panel and everyone understands this, but just to emphasize that this is a 2-year assessment adjustment based on a catastrophic structural impairment that has completely reduced this value of this property to the point where it would be extremely difficult to sell. Its market value is extremely impaired by this unforeseen circumstance.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Linklater. questions for the applicant?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question. This project of repairing this building has started already, Mr. McCoubry?
Yes, they've sent me a bunch of material, and it's all invoices in a spreadsheet format. And I've summarized it, and at this point, for the remainder of 23, so this expenditure probably didn't start, it was ordered vacated the building, I believe, in February of 23. And then there was a period of consultations and so forth. So the earliest invoices I have are the end of June is the first invoices. In 2023, they spent 177,870. And so far in 24, they've spent 11,970. And the remaining contract is $188,000. So the total was 377,840. And I guess the cruelty of this is not only did the east wall, if you look at the pictures, you can see the one picture I provided where the east wall caved in. Repairing that was one thing, but it also dragged the roof down with it. So the entire roof has to be reconstructed. So that is a lot of the remaining 188,000 is to reframe the roof, redeck the roof, recover the roof. And of course, they had to gut the entire restaurant right back to the studs as part of this redoing everything. It was pretty devastating for them. And of course, they thought that demolishing and building new would have been a better answer till they found out the approximate cost of demolition. Demolition costs are outrageous right now. And they were scared off again by the fact that they would have to tie into 2 heritage buildings, and they thought that would complicate the process. So.
Okay. Do they have an idea when this work will be completed?
They don't, from my understanding, they're kind of in a little bit of a lull here in a bit of a lineup. They've only been able to do a little bit of work so far in 24. So they've got to reconstruct the roof. So I don't know when that will finish, but I think if we somewhat arbitrarily pick 6 months more of work and then add in another at least 6 months of lag vacancy, because lag vacancy can be really long in the exchange district. So they could easily take 6 months or a year to secure a tenant. So that, I mean, they could secure one in a day as well. But if you were going to guess on lag vacancy, if you looked at properties advertised for lease in the exchange district, most of them will have been on the market hundreds of days. So I would say it'll be up and running by the end. I'm guessing, I'm sorry, but my best guess would be by the end of 25, first Q1 or Q2 of 26, maybe.
All right. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond.
Yeah, so am I correct then that the building is fully unoccupied now, or is there a tenant on one side?
There is a tenant on, they were able to secure a tenant on the west side. The impairment happened on the east side. Now the tenant, it's a little bit of a, I didn't get a copy of that lease, but it seems to be pretty casual lease. And I don't know if they're going to be able to keep them operating or if they'll have to close their business for a month or two during the roof repairs. So that I don't have the knowledge of that. I will, and one other thing to throw out, I'm not sure this is important, but they're being sued by the tenant on the east side for not being able to honor the lease. So this has been just an absolute nightmare for them from every angle.
You indicate they spent $177,870 in 2023. Do you know what they did with that money?
Yeah, they, a lot of it is, Bird Construction Company, was 169,452. And that was 4 different, items, and that would be just stabilizing the building, which enabled them to put a tenant into the west side. So 170,000 stabilizing, and then there's a lot of, mechanical. There's some plumbing repairs, HVAC repairs, gutting. Even locksmiths are on here. So there's a total of 20 entries from different subtrades. And that came to 177,870 for 23. And then they've included 24 that are into light and electrical. And again, just a lot of sub-trades, locksmiths, all pro mechanical, lighting, electrical. So it's a project that involves a lot of different sub-trades, and some of the bills are quite small. The Bird Construction ones are the big large ones, and the remaining work is essentially the roof, to my understanding.
And you indicated that, and I didn't get that down. I did have 177,870 for 2023, but I didn't have your amount for 2024. How much was that again?
It's 11,970. So things have, once the building was stabilized, now they're just starting to build out what they can prior to the big job coming with the roof.
Okay, so basically, approximately 190,000 has been spent up to this point to rectify the damage, correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
the building is really not as impaired at this point as you would have otherwise thought, because they have rectified a significant portion of it.
Yes, they have. And on the date of this assessment, of course, April 1st, it had no work done, and they thought they were looking at a bill of 410,000 was best info. As it turns out, they're going to be able to finish this job at a total cost of 388. But that's with the benefit of looking backwards in time. At the time, anybody buying this property would have been told by the vendor that our cost estimates we've obtained from professionals is telling us 410,000. In my report, I added another 20,000 because nobody does this for the experience. There's an additional premium that you have to go through all this hassle. So I grossed up that 410 to 430 just to pay them 20,000. Anybody buying it would take off, if the bill's 410, in their mind, they might be taking off 500 for the thought of having to go through this mess.
Okay, well, thank you. I understand now why you have 430 instead of 410 there, which is,
Yeah.
But I think that from my point of view, I understand that we've got to look at the value as the building stands today, not as it stood on the date of assessment. Am I not correct there?
I believe the market value as of April 1st, 23 is the reference date.
That is a reference date, but I think it is the condition of the building today, though, if it were to sell in today's condition on April 1st of 2023.
I don't know that, to be honest. That's a little outside. That might be something perhaps the assessor could speak to.
Okay, thank you. You've answered my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Were there leases in place April 1st, 2023?
There was a lease in place with Miss Brown's. Oh no, on April 1st, 23, pardon me. In February, the lease had to be vacated when the building was declared unsafe. And they subsequently filed suit against the owners here for not being able to honor the lease. So there was lease in place up to the structural disaster in February. It was vacant to both sides. vacant and declared unsafe until such time that Bird Construction came in and stabilized the building.
I see. And
In
what
June.
was the rent for that lease?
You know, I had that and I didn't use it because they had negotiated the lease. It was in like year 8 or something of a 10-year lease, so it was below market.
Okay.
So they had, a lease at like $14 and I'm just going by memory. It was below market, so it wasn't representative of current leases. They had just adjusted or the step ups were too small on that lease.
Okay, thank you. And your reserve, you've revised that to just be 4% for major repair, is that correct?
Yeah, the 4% I believe is fair. I have removed the at the assessor's instruction that that's not permitted for the tenant improvements or lease commissions. So those non-recoverable expenses should be removed from the estimate of net operating income. So that increases net operating income. I think it was 53,740. That of course increases the value as well.
Right, and would you like to comment on that 4% reserve? How that relates to what you've submitted as a cost to cure for the damage, physical damage?
Yeah, it's the structural reserve is a little bit mislabeled. It's primarily to amortize improvements like replacement of HVAC, replacement of roof cover. It's called structural reserve in the industry, but it's probably better said to be just major repairs. Over the remaining life of the building, they're going to have to replace HVAC, they're gonna have to replace maybe some plumbing components or some windows, or there's always ongoing maintenance that aren't charged to the tenants that the owner has to eat. And it's essentially amortizing short life components.
Okay, so it's building a reserve in order
Yes.
to facilitate that.
Yeah, that's actually a better way of putting it.
Okay. And it's my understanding that economic conditions as of the reference date, but current physical condition, that's not your understanding?
No, my understanding is that it's market value as at April 1st, 2023. That's the reference date, and this is not my primary area of expertise, assessment appeal, so I would ask the assessor's opinion. I would that's my interpretation of assessment is it's what was it worth on that date.
Right. Perhaps we'll go off script here, and Ms. Ho, did you care to comment on what we're talking about here as far as physical and economic, which is applicable at what time?
Based off of current condition of the property as of today, based off of the market value of April 1st, 2023. That's how I understand it too.
Thank you. Those were the only questions I had. At this point, Ms. Ho, did you wish to make a summary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So given that there is a detriment regarding this property, my current value of $1,112,000 is a little high, and it's not taking consideration of the property's current condition.
Excuse me, Madam Assessor, pardon my interruption. It's a little bit hard to hear you. Could you possibly hold up the microphone?
Closer? Can you hear me now?
It's still a little bit muffled, maybe,
Louder?
yeah, and closer, possibly?
Louder and closer?
Yeah,
Okay. So given the valuation of 1,112,000, it's under the assumption that the property is in good operating use, in good condition. But given that we have now come to light that there is a detriment to the property, the 1,112,000 is too much. It would be too much given the condition of the property. I'm just asking for the panel to come to a determination of a new value. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCurby, desire for summation?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Then that will conclude this matter. I thank you both for your presentations. Mr. McCurby, you will receive board's decision in due course. And thank you for your presentation today. And you may leave.
Thank you all.
Have a good day.
Mr. Chair, I have admitted the applicant for items 5 to 8.
Thank you. I will have you swear the applicant in then, please.
Yeah. Mr. Rack, can you please state your full name? I believe you may be on mute, Mr. Applicant.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
My name is Lyle Rack.
okay. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Rack. You're here representing the owners for the next 4 properties, and it's the amount of assessed value for 2025 that's in contention. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Now, we do have a preliminary issue on these properties. That being that the submissions were filed late. So at this point, we're going to adjourn, and the panel will discuss whether these submissions will be allowed or not. So if you would,
Yeah, it was
Sorry?
late. It was sent the next morning. And I discussed with the assessor when we inspected the properties, we just got the pictures of the properties that I discussed with her that I'd probably send them the next day, and she was welcome to do the same.
I'm sorry, so you didn't receive
Both.
her briefs until the next day either, is that correct?
So we both.
No, I got her briefs the same day. We just had a discussion, and I
Yeah.
said because we were just
Both
taking all
had
the pictures
to
the day
inspection.
before, that I probably would send them in the next morning. So they were sent in before, I think around 8 o'clock the next morning.
Had to do the inspections together on the day of the submission. It was a bit of a rush for both of us.
Thank you. Ms. Picoto, would you please put us in camera?
Yes.
I thank you. I'd like to reconvene the hearing regarding the late submission of evidence. The council order does state that we exchange information at least 14 days prior to the hearing. And the exchange date is noted on the formal notice of hearing letter due by 4:30 of that date to facilitate exchange. However, the circumstances here, normally we would not allow. We are going to, in this case, make an exception because of the circumstances. So we will allow that, and we can continue on. So the first property we're going to hear is 52 Princess. So when you're ready, that's item number 5 on our docket. When you're ready, Mrs. Assessor, we'll hear your evidence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so we're looking at file number 24-360. Roll number is 96800. Address is 52 Princess. We're looking at the rule year of 2025, reference date of April 1st, 2023, and the assessed value of $546,000. We currently have the property description as a commercial store. The actual year built is 1905. And we have the overall leasable area at 4,331 square feet. If you look onto you skip my second page, go onto my third page, you can see a aerial with like a map view of the location of the property. And you can also see the front of a front picture of the property. I have some pictures of the inspection of 52 Princess on July 24th, 2004. The main floor has cement flooring. Give me a second. I'm just trying to bring up I got the wrong document open. I am very sorry.
That's okay. Take your time.
So you can see that on this is not correct either.
Did you need a moment to sort out your?
I do have the document. It's just this one is a different version of it, and that is my bad. Okay, so so you can see on my page 4, it's open now. It has the cement flooring, some partitioning. It's not exactly a really nice retail store. If you look on my page 5, you can see that it's a lot of storage and inventory. And then page 6, this is in the back area. It's a workshop area for repairs. And then we're on the second floor on my page 7. And then you continue on to the page 8, there is more area. This is still the second floor, but it's still used as more of a storage area, but it's very bare minimum finish, and it's very, very old. Some of the flooring is a little sketchy. Not too sure if it was structurally sound at some points. There was water damage on the roof, and you can see by the ceiling, and there's warping. It's not really well, you can't really see it very well in my page 9. You might be able to see the bowing in my page 10. And then there's a little bit more nicer office finish on my page 11 and page 12. These both are still on the second floor, like for an office and a boardroom. And then on to my page 13, there was a you can see the registration of sale. It was provided to. It was a transfer of ownership from 2 related parties as of May 12, 2020. Now I have some rent comparables on my page 14. ranging from $5.16 a square foot all the way to $12.50 a square foot. I did try to find comparable rents in the near area. And this page 15 is a breakdown of the market income as a storage mezzanine with retail parameters. Just letting you know, using a total leasable area of 4,331 square feet at $10 a square foot, $10.03 a square foot. Using 5% vacancy loss, 3% for expenses, $7 per shortfall, and using 7.05% for overall capitalization rate. However, as you can see from my inspection photos, it doesn't really seem to be a retail store. I think it's probably more closer to a flex warehouse. I did try to look up what would happen if I tried to change the parameters from a retail store to a flex warehouse. The value would change to $486,000 for this property. But that's using flex warehouse parameters. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, questions for the assessor? I'm sorry, we're not hearing you.
Okay, sorry about that. So I think the assessor would agree that the building, as she stated, is basically in original condition. And there hasn't been any major renovations. I guess the only thing I have to ask about is on her comparables, which would be on page . So you have 177 Isabel. Do you know who the tenant is there?
Give me a second. I'll try to get it for you. Isabel, 177 Isabel. I'm not too sure. I don't know who's the tenant for that location.
Okay, that's fine. Do you know if that property has any parking?
No, I'm not too sure either.
Okay, so your comparables, I mean, the subject property is basically built in 1908. Would you agree that your comparables, I mean, they run from 1925, the oldest, but they're running at 1992, 1960, 1975, 63, 74. Would you agree that those comparables are probably in better shape than the property?
Possibly.
Okay. Those are all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
I thank you. Mr. Diamond, questions for the assessor?
I don't have, thank you.
Ms. Linkletter?
Yes. So Mr. Rack has brought up your rent comparables, Ms. Ho, and I'm just wondering, you didn't have a chance to look at any of those comparables, did you?
I took a very brief glance. I was trying to look for things that were near the area, with larger sizable square footage, especially for like as storage for storage mezzanine, if I could. If not storage mezzanine, just the size, just looking for a larger larger size in to be comparable to the property, because I didn't want to match 1,000 square feet to 5,000 in that sense.
Right. Can you speak to the condition of these properties at all?
They're most likely better condition than our subject. Like I said, it's the main floor is pretty bare bones. It's mostly used for inventory. There's a little bit for just space of for just desks, but it's not like a proper enclosed space for an office. It's an actual it's mostly for inventory and storage. And there is quite an area for repairs. And then the second floor is probably a detriment, and it looks like it's original and it's been in disrepair for a long time.
Right. Can you just tell me when you inspected this property?
July 24th, 2024, the day of the submission.
I thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? I'm sorry, I missed something that we first
Yep.
gave me the
Certainly.
opportunity.
Certainly.
Okay, so, yeah, so, Ms. Ho, you did indicate that you revalued the property as a flex warehouse. And in doing so, what cap rate did you use in your calculation?
So the cap rate provided by the model was still $7. Sorry. For 52 Princess, 7.05%.
Okay, so what rent did you then use per square foot?
The rate used per square foot was $8.66.
Okay, thank you.
That was basically what I was going to ask, Mr. Diamond, but I was going to go.
I'm sorry that I preempted
Not-
you, Mr.
Not a
Chair.
problem. I was going to go one step further and ask the assessor, are you making a recommendation that the value should be 486,000?
No, I'm not making a recommendation to increase, no.
It wouldn't be increase, it would be decrease, would it not?
Give me a second. Oh yes, it is a decrease. Sorry, I have both 52 and 62 Princess income streams, like the write-ups in front of me, so that's why I got mixed up. Yes, it would be a decrease.
I'm sorry, it did what?
It would be a decrease, yes. Sorry.
But you're not
I would-
recommending a reduction.
I would recommend the reduction, 486,000.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you very much.
Mr. Rack, we'll hear from you, please.
Thank you. After I give my presentation, I do have a rebuttal brief for this property.
We'll hear that after your presentation.
So if you look at my first page, you'll see that 52 and 62 are basically used as one property. 52 is on the left, 62 is on the right. And you'll see that there's an open door, and that's for 62. The closed door is for 52. If you go to, and the right door, as you see, is the entrance. As you can see that it's lower than the left door. So there's a little bit of a problem of water leaking in into that door because you step down into the building. So you go to page 2, and that's the inside. The assessor has shown that. And you'll see that on the right there, there's basically the heater hanging from the ceiling, which is indicative of a flex warehouse. And page 3 is the shop that the assessor had pictures of. The next page of the forklift is actually for 62, but it's used as one complete building. Presently, the assessor or the department is only assessing the main floor space only. So the second floor has no heat. There's some pictures of the second floor on page 5, how bad the floor is. And page 6, where the leaking is. Page 7. So the second floor is in pretty bad shape. I'd say it's detrimental to the building as far as value goes. I think you'd be better off buying another building than buying this particular building. And so if you keep on going, just through all the pictures. Page 11. So second floor is used for storage. It's not heated. It's barely usable and basically unleasable, and that's why the department, in my opinion, didn't actually assess that. So it's a Class D building, and the rent that the assessor's applying is, the department's applying is $10.03, 7.5% cap. So if you go down to page 12, as you go into 12, you have my comparisons, which are from the assessor's briefs in 2023 for a different property. So you're getting 66666 Ellis, has a lease from January 19. It was built in 1966, and the lease goes to 2025. That's 6,042 square feet at $3.90, and it includes parking. Beside it, that fence compound. You get the next comparable, which is 435 Terrain, I think. It goes from June 21 to May 25. That was built in 1966. So both these buildings are near the subject. That's 4,840 square feet at $496. And that includes, it has a parking lot. Then you've got the 125 Adelaide. Adelaide goes from June 2020 to May 2025. That's 15,764 square feet at 406. And you can see it has, the main floor has two overhead doors for bringing vehicles in or for shipping. And then from the Johnson report, December 2022, asking rents, you got 234 to 240 Jarvis, was built in 1909. It's 6,850 square feet, and it's at 575, and that's similar to the subject property and what it looks like. Then you get 109 Higgins, which is a multi-tenant, 1940, 27,800 square feet are available. That can be subdivided. That's close to the subject. That's at $5. And then a rent 92 Higgins, which is not comparable, but it's just for a rent comparison. Excuse me, you'll see it has office space. On page 14, it has parking. Page 15, you can see the nice interior office space. You can see you can drive into the building. And at the bottom, that was built in 1940. It's got 4,922 square feet, and they're asking $7 for that. So that would demand a higher rent than the subject, and it's well worth $1.25 over the Jarvis property at $575. So we've got the comparables that I've listed, and plus you could actually include the 177 Isabel, with the assessor has at $516, which is a lot nicer building the subject with parking and a fence compound, which I'll show in my rebuttal. So we're getting our average rent about $473 a square foot. So now I've gone into sales, and you got 770 Dufferin. That was sold January 21st, 2022, 12,527 square feet. And that was sold for $19.96 a square foot. Then you got 780 Main, sold in November 22. That's 13,000 square feet, and that sold for $36.92. It's a better location on Main Street. Then below, you've got a retail building that was sold on September 21, 2022, 3820 square feet at $44.76. So it's a superior building in a better location. There is a 2024 appeal pending. The owner missed filing for 2023. So at the Board of Revision, there is a 2024 appeal. So the building was built in 1908. Second floor is unheated. There's structural damages to the floor on the second floor. And there's some poor condition, concrete floors, industrial heaters. The second floor, in my opinion, is more of a hindrance than a plus. So if we take a look at the sales, I'm using the sale at basically 3692 square feet for the main floor. I applied half that value for the second floor, which I don't even know if the second floor has any value at all. But for this exercise, I'm getting a total value of $253,547. So the department, as far as rental comparisons go, the department's using 1003. The attached building next door, which is exactly the same. I know you're not supposed to use comparisons, but it's one, basically it's used as one building. It's assessed at 714. There's no consistency in the rental with the computers applied to both properties. So I think the best comparison is the 234, 240 Jarvis. it's most likely subject to 575. Got a vacancy at Princess is 52 is 5%, 62 is 20%, so they're identical buildings, it's not consistent. And the cap rates aren't consistent. So I'm looking at basically the building is in original condition, which would be a class D. The value is basically on the main floor, so I'm applying 475 a square foot for my comparables. And I'm coming up with, I'm using the basic parameters of the departments. I'm coming out to 247,394. So sales approach is 254. The income approach is 247. So I'm going in between that and saying that the property is valued at about 250,000. And that's my presentation.
Thank you. Ms. Holt, questions for the applicant?
Do you know how much it would cost to repair the second floor?
Oh, I have no idea. I think it would be cost prohibitive to spend the money to fix the second floor. Because it does have structural damage to the floors, which is in my brief for 62 Princess, I pointed that out. On the right side of the building, there's actually steel plates going through the building to hold the floor. And as we both noted, when you walk to the floor, walk to the second floor, it's pretty spongy up there. It would have to be re-gutted. And then once it's re-gutted, you'd have to have an engineer come in. You'd have to have an architect come in. And then it would all have to be built to today's standards, which could be cost prohibitive as far as the valuation of the building goes to spend all that money on the property.
Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Ms. Linklater.
I have no questions at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond.
Yeah, Mr. Rack, you indicated you thought this property was the best comparison was your property in Jarvis.
That's more similar to the property, but I basically averaged all the, I took all the properties into consideration. Because I mean, it's best comparison as far as what it looks like. I mean, as far as rents go, the 666 Ellis, I mean, it's a far superior building and it has parking and it's at $390 a square foot. I mean, that would be a far superior building, but the Jarvis one kind of looks like that property, 575. But I'm basically using all those properties and averaging out the rents. I mean, if I was going to pick something, I would have picked 66 Ellis, but at 390, I think it would have been too low of a value. I mean, one has to look at these things reasonably and what something would be worth. So, 390 a square foot for the Ellis property, that's a far superior building. It's built in 1966 and it's got a compound next door. So I could have used 390, but I averaged all those rents out of all the different properties.
Okay. Do you know if the building is used as a flex warehouse or is it also used as a retail establishment?
Well, when you look at,
I'm asking you what it's used for. I'm asking, do you know what it's used for other than is it a flex warehouse or is it a retail store?
Well, most of the space, if you looked at it percentage-wise, would be a flex warehouse. Although when you're valuing a property, you don't value it on its use. You value it as to what the building actually is. So you can use anything as.
Yeah, I think you used its best use, but is it used as a retail establishment at all, or is it just used as a warehouse and repair shop?
So there's a
can people
small
go in
part,
there, Mr. Rack, can people go in there and buy things?
Well, I was just about to say that. There's a small part in the front that you basically go in to buy things. So their main business is actually refurbishing large motors.
Okay.
So that it's dropped off at the back of the property and brought it through the back door. But there is a small retail component in the front, correct?
Okay. And the top is usable. I mean, I know that it's not being considered, but obviously it's an advantage to them because they are using it for storage, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Just want to add that the second floor is used for storage, but I don't believe it would be leasable. If they didn't use it for storage and they put it up for lease, I don't think anybody would lease that space. But since they have it, they do use it for storage, correct?
No, I'm saying it could be an enhancement though, for people to pay the rent on the ground floor because they do have that available at no additional cost. So that's an enhancement, would it not be?
Yes, you'd get it. You'd pay rent on the main floor and you get the second floor for free.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, could you just clarify what your expenses of 3%, what they entail?
Typically the department uses that 3% expenses as the closing cost for when you purchase a property.
So you're accepting what the department uses, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. You said you had some rebuttal?
Yes, I do have a rebuttal brief for that property.
Has it been submitted?
Yes, it was.
I am distributing it right now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
It should be in your OneDrive folder.
Do we have to reopen the agenda to get it?
I'm not seeing it as yet.
If you could just refresh your agendas again.
That's what I've done, and I do not see it. Oh, I now have it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Item 5, applicant rebuttal.
Yeah.
I see it.
2.
There's 2 of them, one yesterday at 1:37 and one at 11:02. Is that correct? Mr. Rack, you submitted 2 rebuttals?
Yes, one rebuttal. I think the earlier one would be for the property, and then I had the second rebuttal would be a rebuttal against the assessor's appraisal at the bottom of each page of each of the 4 properties we have today. So I think you're looking at the one you want to look at is the one, the earlier one at 11 o'clock.
That's the one that starts with 175 Isabel photo. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do the other panel members have a rebuttal?
I have it.
Thank you. Ms. Linklater?
Yes, I have it. Thank you.
Thank you. And the assessor, you have it as well?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Rack, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the assessor wasn't too familiar with the property she picked, so I'm going to go over what she's picked here. So the subject was assessed at 1003 a square foot, and basically the first property she has is 177 Isabel Street. It's a two-story building, got a large paved parking lot and a compound area. It's got lots of main floor windows for the retail area. Got a stone exterior. It's superior to the subject, and I don't think it's comparable. So this property rents out at $5.16 a square foot, which is clear evidence of subject rent at $10 is too high. I mean, that's a far superior building. It's got a huge parking lot. The subject has no parking, and it has a compound on the right. So that would, at the $5.16, that would mean that the subject property at $10 is too high. If you go to the second comparable, 313 Princess, that's standard auto works. So it's got a large parking lot, compound, 18-foot high ceilings, and this is a service garage, especially in auto and truck suspension work. The subject property is not a service garage. Can't drive, I mean, it's full of lifts. It's basically a service garage. So that's not comparable to the subject. Subject is not a service garage. You go to the next one, is number three is 407 Graham. This is a two-story retail and office building. The 407 is on the second floor. You can see the number on the building, 407, that leads up to the second floor. The second floor of 52 Princess is basically unusable, and it's definitely not comparable. And besides that, it's an irrelevant comparable because the subject property's second floor is not assessed. If you go to number 4, it's 136 Market. That's located behind the Pantages Theater. And again, as you look at that building's nothing comparable to the subject, and the comparison is not applicable, and it's irrelevant because the second floor is not assessed at the subject property. If you go down to page 5, you get 268 Fort. It's a half a block from Portage and Main. It's a two-story building and doesn't have bare concrete floors. It's basically an office building. And I don't think that that one is comparable either. And you can see on the bottom page, on page 5, where it's located. That's a superior location. But it's, I don't believe that's a comparable property. So now you go to number 6, which is 111 Fort. And again, that's a superior building. I don't know if it's the first floor or the second floor she's using, but it's a nicer building, superior location. And it definitely doesn't have concrete floors inside like the subject property. It would have a nice office finish. And I don't think that one is comparable. And you can see from the second picture that it's, and you can see the Fort Garry Hotel from there. So it's got a superior location. So the final one is basically 155 Fort Street 8. And the assessor used this property for 441 Main, which we'll hear today, and she listed it as a restaurant. So a restaurant is not comparable to the subject property. The subject property is not a restaurant.
Sorry,
Use this,
Mr. Rack, let me interject there. This was not used for this property?
oh, this is used for this property. I'm showing that if you look at, it says right there underneath the picture, this is the same comparable that is used for 441 Main Street, which we are going to hear today.
Right, but we're
And the
not hearing
assessor-
that as yet, Mr. Rack. So this is rebuttal for the evidence that's been presented for this property.
Well, this is one of her comparables for this
For
property.
this property? I'm
Yes, it
sorry,
is.
let me. I'm sorry, you said this is one of the comparables she used for 52 Princess?
That's correct. If you go to page it'd be page 14 of her brief. The last comparable on that page is 155 Fort Street A.
Okay,
And in my rebuttal, that's the last one of my rebuttal is Fort 155 Street A. What I'm showing is that this comparable was also used in 441 Main, which we're going to hear today.
Oh.
And that same comparable in Maine was a restaurant.
Okay, so this is that 441 Main, we're gonna discuss that later.
Yeah,
Correct.
but I'm just showing is that this property in this for 52 Princess is actually a restaurant. So it's not comparable to Princess. Princess is not
Okay.
a restaurant.
Okay, my error. Please continue.
So, I mean, to sum it all up, her first comparable is indicative of what I'm presenting, and in my opinion, the other comparables and the pictures that I've shown are superior and better locations, and some of them have parking lots. So I don't believe that they're comparable to the subject property, and that's my rebuttal.
Thank you. Ms. Holt, any questions regarding the rebuttal evidence?
No,
Thank you. Mr. Diamond
I don't either, thank you.
and Ms. Linklater.
I have no questions for Mr. Rack, but if I could redirect a question to Ms. Ho, and it's in regards to evidence that she provided to us a few minutes ago. Or
Certainly,
a statement, actually.
certainly, go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Ho, I believe you suggested you offered to reduce this property to 486,000, correct?
yes, by changing the parameters of the property from retail to flex warehouse.
Okay. Did you give us a square footage on that, what you would
Yeah.
be charging for rent?
We're using so leasable area is 4,331 square feet. The
Right.
area rent of the price per square foot, we're using $8.66 per square
Thank you.
feet.
Thank you. I didn't catch that first time. Thank you
That's
very
okay.
much. That's all my questions.
No questions for Mr. Rack?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ho, desire for a summation.
The property is not in great shape, especially the second floor, majority of the second floor. There is an office area that is finished and it does have heating. There is the main floor that's pretty basic, so it has concrete floors, drywall, workshop area, and used for storage for both the main floor and the second floor. Again, it's not, the second floor is not in great shape for sure. The issue is probably is the value. I am placing a recommendation, but changing the value from 546,000 to 486,000, from changing it from a retail store to flex warehouse. And that's my presentation for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, desire for summation?
Just quickly, it's obvious that the assessors' comparables are not comparable for their condition, location, and for what they are. I've provided evidence in sales, I've provided evidence in rents, and even the assessor has a rent at $516. And I think even a recommendation at $8 is too high for the property. I think I've given enough evidence of what the property would rent for in the open market. And I'm asking for the reduction. Thank you.
I thank you. We'll conclude this matter. Before we continue on, I would like to take a 5-minute recess. I have a technical issue here. So if you would, please, Ms. Picotto, if you would
Yeah.
take us offline for a 5-minute period. It's 10:43 now, so 10:50.
Okay.
We'll
Okay.
resume. Thank you. I will call the hearing back to order. We'll deal with the next property on our docket, which would be item number 6, 62 Princess. When you're ready, Mrs. Assessor, we'll hear from you, please.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, we just have a preliminary matter. So I believe we might need to go on camera once again.
Preliminary matter for 62 Princess?
Yeah, late evidence submission.
Oh, okay. Let's go in camera then, please. Thank you. I'd like to call a hearing back to order. We have conferred, and in normal circumstances, the exchange date is 4:30 on the 4:30 of the day for the exchange date in order to facilitate the exchange next morning. In this circumstance, though, we are going to make an exception and we will allow the late submission of the evidence. So we can continue with the hearing. Ms. Ho, when you're ready, we'll hear your evidence, please. This is 62 Princess we're dealing with. I'm sorry, are you on mute?
I'm, do you hear me now? Okay,
Yes,
sorry,
you.
I have way too many documents open at the moment, so please bear with me. Okay. So we're looking at file number 24-362. This is for roll number 13060969000. This is for the roll year of 2025, reference date of April 1st, 2023. We're looking at an assessed value of $409,000. We have currently assessed it as a commercial retail store. We did do an inspection of the property on July 24th of this year. If you can see, I have some photos on my page 3. I have an aerial map, a Google map, and a front view of the subject property. This is the adjacent property to 52 Princess Street. 62 Princess is used primarily for storage. As you can see, there's concrete floors, there's racking for inventory, there's some ceiling tile. There's some partitioning for different storage areas. There's stairs leading up to a second floor that's also in rough shape. And also from the looks of it, it doesn't look like it was heated. The area is not, the second floor is not heated and it doesn't have air conditioning. And we have a sales history of on this property. Back in December 2019, it appeared to be an associated sale. If we have the discussion back to my rank comparables on my page 9, and then on page 10, that's the breakdown of how the assessment was attained for $409,000. If you've noticed that I have 7,308 square feet at a rent of $7.14 square feet. We have a vacancy loss of 20%. This is a fully occupied and wholly owned by the owner. So this was not from me. We also have an overall capitalization rate of $7.40. I mean, not $7.40, 7.4%. So it brings an estimated value of $409,000. However, when I corrected it to Flex Warehouse for this property, I ended up getting somewhere closer to so using 3,654 square feet and using a rate of $8.75, I have a rent, a potential rent of $31,973, less the vacancy allowance of 4% rather than 20%. Using flex warehouse parameters of $4 and other of 3%. Using the same overall capitalization rate of 7.05, same as 52 Princess, I have got a value of 414,000, which is which is slightly higher than what we're coming in for, what I'm defending at 409,000. That is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, questions for the assessor?
I have no questions.
Mr. Diamond, questions for the assessor?
Yeah, okay, this property is the adjacent property to the property we just dealt with, is that correct, Mrs. Hall?
Correct. Correct.
And property similar, is the second floor in this property being assessed as usable or not?
It's being assessed as usable. So
Okay,
that's why I'm providing another valuation with a reduced leasable area, excluding the second floor. But however, I also removed the vacancy allowance, so it pretty much evens out the overall value.
Okay, so I see, so that's why you did your recalculation on 3654. That's the ground floor leasable area?
Yes.
And based on your comparisons, do you think your comparisons are fair in describing the property you're dealing with here?
I don't think so.
So do you have any recommendation to base maybe a lower rental than what you've attributed?
Unfortunately, based off of the comparables I provided, I cannot provide a recommended rental rate.
Okay, well, thank you. That's my questions.
Thank you. Ms. Linkletter?
My questions have been asked and answered. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I just wanted clarification. When you revalued as a flex warehouse, what was the leasable area you used?
So I used 3,654 square feet instead of 7,308.
So half the area that was.
Half the area, yes.
And what was the rent per square foot you applied?
$8.75.
And that's a model-driven valuation?
I was trying. Yes.
And can you just give me an explanation of what? Sorry, let me just get to this.
Yep.
Your expenses of 3%. What is your understanding of what that 3% represents?
I'm understanding that the expenses for 3% is allocation for like overall maintenance and structural. That's how I understood it, but I could be wrong. I should follow up and refresh that. I don't think it includes leasing commissions or tenant inducements.
Thank you. One other thing, you said the 20% vacancy, you said that wasn't from you. So do you know why that was applied?
It may have been a carryover from a previous reassessment. Maybe, I don't know. When I was reviewing the property and the income stream, it was just there. So I removed it just to see what the model was generating, and vacancy loss for flex warehouse was 4%.
Okay. But you say it's owner occupied.
Yes, it's wholly owner occupied.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Rack, we'll hear from you, please.
Thank you. Okay, so page one, I think we've seen these pictures before. Page two is basically 62. If we go all the way down to page four, where the forklift is, you can see they have a forklift to bring in, like I said, they basically refurbish large electrical motors, so they need a forklift to bring parts in and the motors in due to how heavy they are. So there's a forklift. Stairs going upstairs. We're going to page 5. Second floor is unheated. You can see in page 5, page 6, the condition of the inside. There for years there was water penetration through the roof. They did get the roof patched up in 2020. You can see that's why there's drywall up there, because the roof was totally destroyed. You can see in the next page, page 6, the condition of the walls. And page 6 on the bottom, you can see there's patchwork on the floor. They had to put some plywood down because the floors were giving away. You keep going and you can see on page 7, basically that's the damage to the walls from the roof leaking, all the stains. You can just keep paging down through the pictures. There's some of 62 in there, but the overall condition of the second floor is terrible. So I think it's barely usable, and the floors are spongy. I'd say as assessor has removed the second floor, it is unleasable. You can see that there was a 22% increase in the value over the 2 years in the property. I don't think the property is worth it. Even at 334, it's not worth it. I don't believe at that type of value. I'm using, you see the main floor is 4,026 square feet. That's the area I'm using. You've seen the comparables from the other property. The 390, 496, 406, 575, $5. And the average of that is basically 475. The sales are there from the other property. So using the sales, and I'm using the sale on Main Street, 783 Main Street as the first property, 52. I think it's a superior location for sure on Main Street. It's not that, the top piece there is a parapet that is extremely high. It's only 14-foot high ceilings in that building. So using that building, which is the middle value, which is most like the subject, we're getting main floor at 3692. We're getting half the value for the second floor. So we're getting a total value of $222,958. The average rent is basically $475 on my comparables. I've reduced the vacancy to 5%. And basically, so then applying the parameters at $475 a square foot, I'm getting a value of $219,000. So we got a sales approach at 223, the income approach at 219. And just below that, you can see there's 2 pictures of the exterior of the building, actually 3. You'll see that there's a piece of steel in the middle picture that goes across, and the star plates on each end. Those are used to anchor steel within the building. So what has happened on that floor is the floor is given away, and basically due to the poor condition, and they put these anchor plates on the outside of the building with a piece of steel on the inside of that wall, and that's what the floor joists are attached to. So it has suffered some significant structural damage that had to be repaired. So assessor agrees the second floor should not be leasable, but as the comparables that I've shown and my comparable sales, even the computer generated value of $8, I believe, is too high. I think 475 is more indicative of that property and what properties rent for in my comparisons. And I'm asking to have the property reduced to $220,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ho, questions for the applicant?
No, thank you.
Ms. Linklater, questions?
I just have one question to Mr. Rack, more out of curiosity. You've got this building listed as a Class D.
Correct.
Is
Class-
this from the city, or this is your? I've never seen a Class D. That's why I'm inquiring.
There's many Class D properties in the city. What class, you've probably heard of Cs. What a Class D building is a building that is in basically original condition from the date it was built. In other words, this was built in 1909, and the structure and the money, and there has been no money invested in the property to renovate it. So it's basically in its 1909 condition overall. I think it's in poor condition because of the second floor. So that's what a D building is. The next up building would be a C building, which would be original, but they've invested money into upgrade maybe the heating systems or the interior walls, floors, etc. So D just means that it's an original condition and nothing has been done to it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rack. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, but I have no further questions.
Thank you. Just clarification, Mr. Rack, the classification, is that your classification or is that like a standard appraisal classification or from a valuation or from the city of Winnipeg? What?
Well, the city of Winnipeg, when you classify something as retail, it's not classified in A, B, C, or D. It's just called retail. Once it's changed into a flex warehouse, it will have a classification of A, B, C, or D. But since it's retail, there is no such classification. It's basically, I mean, retail is for use. It's not a retail building. It's basically a flex warehouse. As the assessor agrees, it should be a flex warehouse. I mean, that's how buildings should be valued no matter what they are. You value them as to what they are physically.
Right.
So D,
Okay, I think.
so D would be, sorry.
No, go
D
ahead.
would be a classification of condition of the building. So it'd be a Class D building as a flex warehouse.
Thank you. And just out of curiosity more than anything, is there a demising wall between 52 and 62?
Yes, there is. And there's just an opening that you walk through to get in the other building.
Oh, so they've punched the walkthrough to make it adjoining properties. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, I think it's been used. Dells Electric has been in this configuration for decades. It was basically taken over. The son took over the property from the father.
Okay, I thank you. Did you have a rebuttal for this property?
I do have a rebuttal. The rebuttal I have is basically the same rebuttal that we went over for 52.
Okay, so would you like to have that entered as evidence as well for
Yes,
this property?
Sure, you can enter it as evidence. I don't think I need to go through it because I went through it for the other property. Again, just to make a few comments is that the 177 Isabel, which is the Rondex building with the superior property that has parking in a compound, and that's at I believe it was 516 a square foot, which is a superior property to the subject. So obviously the subject can't be more than 516 if this is one of the comparables to the subject.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ho, did you have any questions or concerns regarding that being entered as rebuttal evidence for this property?
No, I do not have any concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond, any concerns?
No, I do not. Thank you.
And Ms. Linklater?
No, I have no concerns at all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, that will conclude that matter then.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment? Is
Sure.
that the submission of the next two properties, all these four properties were all inspected on the same day, one after another. So the being late is attributed to the same reasons for all four properties.
I thank you for that. We do have a preliminary issue though on the next property, which is 441 Main. So we will have to go in camera to discuss the matter. Thank you. I will call the hearing back to order. The evidence was not submitted by 4:30 on the exchange date. However, due to the circumstances, we will make an exception and we will accept that evidence. So the 441 Main. We'll hear your evidence when you're ready, please, Mr. Assessor. This will be item number 7 on our docket.
Our assessor stepped away, so.
I'm sorry.
We should stop. Our assessor stepped away, we'll go back in recess until they reappear.
Oh, the assessor's not there. Okay. Thank you. I'll call the hearing back to order. We'll try this again. Normally, a late submission is not accepted if it's not submitted by 4:30 on the exchange date. However, the circumstances dictate that we will allow the submission in this instance. So the property is 441 Main, number 7 on our docket. When you're ready, Ms. Assessor, we will hear your evidence, please.
All right, we're looking at file number 24-333. Roll number is 13062775000. This address is 441 Main Street. The roll year is 2025, reference date of April 1st, 2023. We have the assessed value at under dispute for $734,000. We have it currently assessed as a commercial retail store. It has 16 premises, and it has, according to our records, we have 3 stories. It's built in 1906. It's has character zoning. It has a total land area of 4,716. We have a basement. We also have basement area, and we also have a leasable area of 16,018 square feet. I did do an inspection with the applicant on July 24th, 2024. If you look at my page 3, you can see there's a aerial view and a picture of the front of the subject property. Page 4, you can see there's an example of the main floor occupied by a nightclub. And so page 4 is the main floor. Page 5 is still the main floor. There's a bit of a mezzanine area. Page 6 is the basement. Same with page 7. Page 8 is a stairwell. That's the primary vestibule, I believe, to get into the office units that are in the 2 upper floors. This is one of the page 9 is one of the landings. Page 10 is an example of one of the units. Page 11 is another unit. Page 12 is the hallway to the office units. Page 13 is an example of a different unit. Page 14 is there is water damage from the roof. You can see the severity of it. in one of the main common washrooms, and then in another common area, and then in one of the common areas. I believe this is on the 4th floor. On the 3rd floor, we went from main floor all the way to the 4th floor, then we went down to the 3rd floor, just to explain. Now the 3rd floor looks pretty original, pretty worn. And here's an example of a door on page 17. Page 18 is another example of a unit. So you can see that all the units, all the office units vary in terms of quality and finish. I have no comment for page 19. Page 20 is some examples of comparable rents. I have some for standard finish and some for standard restaurant. That are located within the closest in the area. So for the standard finish, it ranges from $5.99 to $15, and then for the standard restaurant finish, it ranges between $15 to $20. I mean $10 to $20. And if you see my page 21, it's a breakdown of all the rental income and the units. However, when we did the inspection, it came to note from the applicant that we have the wrong square footage. So it's currently under review to clean up all the premises and the areas. So I don't necessarily have an exact rent because I need to be able to match which premises that need to be inactivated on our models in our model, and it does take time. As you can see, we have for the standard restaurant finish, we have 4,600 square feet, and the rent per square foot at $12.48. And then for all of the standard finish, I guess for the offices, it all varies between, I guess, roughly around $7 a square foot. So like $6.60 to $8 from the looks of it, especially for the smaller units at 184 square feet. They're around $7.91. We have a vacancy loss in taking consideration for this property. We have 3% for expenses, $7 for the shortfall. So we have a net operating income of $56,919 with an overall capitalization rate of 7.75%. For a final total of $734,000. It's given its current use, it's being assessed as a commercial retail store. It could also be used as an office. It's hard to say because we're going between use versus what it is. But yeah, that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, questions for the assessor? I think you're muted, Mr. Rack.
Sorry. The assessor, we inspected the property. There was a tenant on the main floor. Would you agree that that tenant took possession from what the owner and the tenant stated sometime in December of 2023?
I believe so.
So the main floor is not a restaurant, it's actually a nightclub or an evening bar, correct?
Correct.
And when we were there, the owner basically had stated that the property does need a new roof, that he's been putting it off. And that addition to getting the roof replaced, he mentioned that the HVAC unit's gonna has to come off the roof. And he also mentioned the parapet around the roof has to be raised up higher, correct?
Correct. He provided a verbal quote of $80,000, and I believe when we were discussing about how much it would cost just to replace a commercial roof, it was around $20 or $25 a square foot. But however, we didn't have a actual written quote, so I wasn't able to discuss it further with or be able to be able to do further with the consideration.
And when you were inspecting the property with the fellow assessor, you took pictures of the occupancy permits on the floors, correct?
Correct. We do have, like I said, what we have on record is needs a little bit of a cleanup. So it will take time. So I will be working with another assessor to correct all the premises that we have, and hopefully and then update it accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Linklater, questions?
Yeah, Miss Ho, I just wanted some clarification on your pictures. Your page 7. Sorry, I'm just scrolling to it.
Yeah, it's a little blurry. I'm sorry about that. The camera is a lot smaller. My screen is a lot smaller than the actual page.
Okay. So is page 7 though, this picture, is this what they're using as a kitchen?
No, this is a vestibule to walk in. This is a back way. You
No,
go to the side entrance to get into.
Excuse me, Ms. Hull. I
Sorry?
think you're referring to page 8.
Oh.
It's the
Yeah.
page before that.
Page
sorry,
7.
So sorry. So page 7, that is their kitchen. I guess their dishwashing area. They really don't have a kitchen area from the looks of it. You can see there's a dishwasher. There's a commercial dishwasher, but I don't see it's like actual HVAC or items to like clear out to actually process food from the looks of it. I don't remember seeing cold storage in the basement. I could be incorrect. It may be on the main floor. I didn't look into the behind the bar. We went immediately straight to the basement after looking around the party area.
Okay, so I'm going to say that does not really look like a functioning kitchen.
No, it does not. It
So
just
you
looks like a
agree?
cleanup area. Yeah.
So, but yet, sorry, and I'm just scrolling forward again here. On your page 21, you're giving it 4,600 square feet at $12.48.
Model is providing $12.48.
Okay, so your brief is model driven then.
It's all model driven. Like I said, this property needs a cleanup.
Yeah.
And this is all I produced the evidence as a little prior to our I produced the evidence prior to our inspection, and then tried to do my best to get in on time, but I wasn't so sure because given we both had to do the inspections the day of.
Right.
And I figured that we'll do a further discussion and do what we need to do within the next 2 weeks. Like I said, it's a little bit messy on the back end, so we're having a discussion now as the owner has the right to. But on my own time, I would do my best to clean up the leasable area.
All right, thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond?
So, Ms. Ho, I think what you indicated was that you know that there is some problem with the roof and it's going to require rectification, but you didn't have a cost of rectifying it. If you did have a cost, would you be inclined to reduce the assessment by that amount?
Yes.
And is that roof, is it deferred maintenance or general maintenance that hasn't been done, or is it something that just came up and no fault of the owner?
I'm not too sure how old the roof is. I think it would be better off to ask the applicant regarding the age of the roof. You do need to replace the roof eventually. I just don't know if it was because of this. You also saw this, you know, on one of the inspection pictures. There was water damage
Yes.
significantly. I'm not too sure it was deferred or it was just its due time.
Okay. Next question. I see there's a capitalization rate that you've used of 7.75% for this building. And is that reflective because of the roof? I mean, it seems like it's a high rate to me based on the pictures and the photographs I've seen otherwise, other than
Like I said, this entire report is generated by the model. So
Right.
the 7.75 is from the model.
and the model would not have taken into account the water damage on the top floor.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Just staying with the cap rate, at 7.75%. I see the building was originally built 1906, and there's an age variant on it of 1972. Is that 7.75%? Is that reflective of the original age or the variant age? Do you know?
I think it's probably for a reflection of the varying age from my understanding.
And would it make a difference if it was the original age?
I believe so.
So the cap rate would be even higher than if,
I would assume so, yes.
okay, and restaurants versus nightclubs, they're considered to be the same utility. Is that the department's position on that?
I'm not too sure about the department's position on that. I think it's just trying to fit it into the best category that we have, because we don't really have a nightclub classification from the best of my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. And then just out of curiosity more than anything, your picture on page 11,
Scrolling, yes.
I see there's a bathtub there. Is this
Yes.
used as an apartment?
Uh, I'm not too sure if it's being used as an apartment. I also noticed that one of the other units did have a kitchenette, like a little kitchen, but I don't know if it's being used as an apartment.
Okay, but as far as the department is concerned, valuing it, they're valuing it as office space or retail space?
So I guess it's being valued as, I'm just going to say commercial space, but because right now we have it assessed under standard finish, so it could be just retail or office, I'm assuming.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rack, we'll hear from you, please.
Thank you. So page 1 of my brief, you can see it's a Class C office built in 1906. It's got historical designation. If you go to, you've seen some pictures from the assessor. And in fact, in one of the pictures you saw that the conduit, steel conduit for electrical runs out on the inside walls of the units. Because to upgrade electrical, you can't drill holes in the wall, etc. So the conduit actually is on the exterior walls, and that is in picture 18 of the assessor's brief. So go back to my brief, and as you saw on the 3rd floor, the floors are in pretty bad condition. It's all original. So In my pictures, you'll see on page 2, you'll see that there's basically the mechanical room is on the north side of the building, and a couple of units have new floors. You look at page 3, you'll see that there's tile going on to the original flooring. And if you go to page 4, that floor was renovated slightly, new drywalled over the lath and plaster. Go to page 5, you'll see that the floor is wearing out, so the way the owner deals with it is to put tiles in where the floor is worn out. They just basically cut the floor out and put a tile in. And page 6, picture like the assessor had, that's all original. That's on the 4th floor, and you can see you had pictures of the flooring, which is in terrible shape. So the owner has known for years that this property needs a new roof. He's been putting it off because the income stream of the property is so low. In some cases, he loses money at the end of the year once he pays for all the operating costs of the property. So it's got to the point where now he's forced to do something to the roof. He's known it for years that he has to do it. But again, as you'll see from the income expense statements I have, that when you're losing money, it's kind of hard to put money into a building. So the same picture the assessor has, that's in the washroom. The next picture below on page 9 is actually in the next room. And same thing as picture 10, that's in the next room. So the water's coming through. I've got an estimate for another property that I handle for 1300 St. James of 2024. And you'll see basically the cost of that roof for 43,400 square feet is $969,000. That's $20.75 per square foot. So with a roof area of 4,141 square feet, it would cost about $86,000 to replace that roof. In addition, the cost would have to be added in for removing the HVAC that's on the roof of the crane. Plus, the parapet has to be built up because it's too low. So basically, we've got page 12 is the city's valuation. So page 13. The area has always been a dispute for appeals since 2018. Assessors came down and inspected the building in the summer of 2021. Diagrams have been submitted. The assessor, Jamie, inspected the whole building with diagrams in hand. We had blueprints on the main floor because it was being ripped up. We took some measures, but never changed the areas. Shortly after the inspection, the permit department came down to inspect the building. Letters and diagrams are submitted by the owner, and they're attached below. This information was submitted to the board for 2023 appeal. Now it's 2025, and still the assessors have not adjusted the area of the building. I'm glad and I commend the assessor that she's going to basically tend to that finally after all these years. So basically, 2022, you can see that the building has always been around 9175 square feet. That was all determined by a laser level. You've got chronic vacancy for over the years. You can see the net operating income on page 14 that for the last 3 years, the owner has lost money on the property. So the assessor's cap rate is 7.75%. Now that's a Class C building. So you'll see that basically from these CRBE, Cushman & Wakefield, the Colliers, a high B is basically 8.5%. The subject is a 1906 bank office building, and it is classified as a C, so it requires a higher cap rate than a B. So I'm using the highest cap rate of a B, which is 8.5%. So in the valuation, the apartment's using $729 overall. I've adjusted the rent to $9. I adjusted the rent to $9 because of 2023, discussing with the assessor at the time at the board, he reevaluated the building at 9175 square feet. And his computer generated value came up to $9 a square foot. So that's where I got the $9 a square foot. That would mean that the upper areas would be maybe $8 or $7.50, and the main floor would be $11 or $12. So I'm adjusting the area from 16,081 square feet to 9,175 square feet, which is a leasable, and which is what the occupancy permit state. I'm adjusting the cap rate from 7.75 to 8.5 to basically meet industry standards on a Class C building, and there are no there are no cap rates for Class C, but they would be higher. So I'm using the highest of Class B, which I think is appropriate. Then you'd have to take in consideration with that cap rate, the vacancy. The cap rate would basically take into account some of the vacancy, and the fact that it's an original condition on the 3rd floor, and the fact that it needs a new roof. That would all have to be considered in. So it does need a new roof, but I adjusted the cap rate, and I did not calculate the roof replacement into my valuation. So I'm using the cap rate to basically handle age, industry standards for cap rates on Class C, and the condition, and the roof, the fact that it needs a roof. So if you go back down to 16, you'll see that's information sent to the occupancy department, stating what the square footages is on the which is called the 4th floor. And then you'll see the next page in 17 is the occupancy information for the occupancy permit on the 3rd floor. And the 2nd floor is actually the mezz from the main floor. So you can see on page 18 is a site diagram. And basically the 19 and 20 is laser measured by the owner. He's actually a home builder, so he knows how to measure things. So this is all laser measured to come up with all the spaces. And if you go down to page 21, you'll see the income and expense questionnaire for 2023. It was 75% vacant. And if you go down to page 2022, you'll see that at the top there, it says under 4.4 Main Inc. that number 1, main floor at 4,647 square feet, basement is included. And you'll see all the vacancy that is in that building at the time. Nightclub was vacant, and 302, 303, 400, 401, and basically 406. So if you can go down through the income space expense questionnaires, go all the way down to 2016, which basically supports the chart I have on page 13 for the chronic vacancy. So basically, I've used $9 a square foot, reduced the square footage to 9175, used the 25% vacancy, 3% shortfall at $7, and I adjusted the cap rate to basically reflect the building and its condition and what has to be done to the roof. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
I thank you. Ms. Ho, questions for the applicant?
No questions, please. Thank you.
Mr. Diamond,
I have no questions.
Ms. Linklater,
I also have no questions. Thank you.
you say there's historical designation on this property, Mr. Rack?
That's correct.
Do you know what class it is and what's prohibited?
I do not, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms.
Excuse me, I
Assessor,
do have a rebuttal. Sorry, I do
oh,
have a
you have
rebuttal.
rebuttal on this one? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Is that in our,
you should have it.
I am distributing it now, Mr. Chair.
thank you. Is this the other one that you were you were referring to earlier, Mr. Rack? The one that was
Yeah,
at 1:30?
that's 11
1:30.
o'clock. Yeah, that'd be, the earlier one, I think that would have been 11.
Right?
That would be the rebuttal, for this property. It's sent at 11.
Is that not the rebuttal you used for 52 and 62 Princess?
No, I sent in 4 altogether.
Oh, okay. Okay, this is,
Mr. Chair, it should be under item 7, applicant rebuttal 1.
right, I have that. Does the other panel members have that? Item 7, rebuttal 1.
I'll open up my agenda again. I should.
It'll start with 256 Kennedy.
Yes, I have it.
Okay, thank you. And you have it as well, Mrs. Assessor?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Rack, you may proceed.
Okay, so page 1, you'll see that the first comparable the assessor is using is 256 Kennedy at $14.99. That's only for 578 square feet. So it is a superior location, and it's nothing like the main floor of the subject property. Plus, there would be economies of scale for renting it as far as the size. So I'd question that. And then if you go to page 2, this is an ad for the whole complex on Kennedy, and they're saying that it's actually $15 semi-gross. So we don't know what the net actually is because it's a semi-gross lease. I mean, we don't know what's included. They probably pay the utilities and perhaps management, repairs and maintenance are included. So it would be below $15. If you look at page 3, those are the units that are in that block, part of that Kennedy Graham property. And if you go to page 4, you'll see more pictures of the buildings. You can see it's nothing like the subject property on the main floor. If you go to page 2, if you go to page 5, you'll see that basically above that, on page 4, you'll see that's 428 Unit 511 Portage Avenue, the Power Building at $9.99 a square foot. And I'm using overall $9 a square foot. So you'll see it's a superior building. It's connected to the Skywalk, which has to add value, and it's beside the old Bay building. So if you scroll down between there, you'll see it's a power building, and basically it's a 6-story office building located at the intersection of Portage and Bond. Got the Skywalk. It's a heritage building featuring newly renovated common areas, on-site management, security, and a common boardroom. So this is one of the units of the dentist office, and it's obviously superior to the subject property. It's all been renovated. And the boardroom is on page 7. Then you'll get unit on page 8 is going to be 3407, which is the second floor in Graham and Kennedy, which would the assessors used at another for 52 and 62 Princess. And you'll see that's a newer building, which is obviously in better shape and condition than the subject property. You go to page 9, which is unit 460, 402 Main Street. That is actually a property that I have represented for a number of years, and it's owned by Leon A. Brown. And you'll see on page 10, that's Peg City Co-op at 1125. And you'll see that these are semi-gross rents. If you go to page 11, you'll see actually the net income of that particular year on that property is $64,000 in the whole. And you'll see on page 12, it's the bottom line. So you'll see 2,100 square feet, and you can see all the check marks, what's included. So you're getting things of property taxes are included, insurance is included, management's included, basically waters, sewer and waters included, heat's included, maintenance and repairs is included, cleaning is included. So everything is included in that space. And as you go down to page 13 and 14, you'll see what a typical space in that building looks like, which is far superior to the subject property. Especially on page 14, you can see the glass doors, and it's got a large, very nice staircase coming up. So it's a superior property on the upper floors in the subject property. And that's probably, it's probably about in the $8 range as far as net goes. So that's not comparable to the subject property. It's in better condition. Then the 5 and 6 comparables that the assessor is using is 230 and 232 Main Street. And that is an effective year built of 2010 due to the extensive renovation, superior location, and it's a superior location. It's 1.5 blocks away from Broadway. So that's a picture of that building. And if you go to page, that's on 15, you go to page 16, it says states 230 Main Street. It's a restored heritage building, office and retail opportunity. So you can see the whole interior has been restored. It's beautiful inside there. I mean, it's pretty nice with staircase, skylights, flooring, everything's been restored. They state it's a restored heritage building. So that would be why the rents would be so high in that building. And then again, there's a picture of that same interior on the bottom, and that's not remotely comparable to the subject property. So the assessor, basically in the restaurants, the assessor's restaurant comparables, after years of main floor vacancy, the main floor and the subject property is rented in 2023, a year and a half past the reference date. So in the reference date, it was vacant for another year and a half. The income expense questionnaires over years have indicated that it's been a nightclub. It has never been a restaurant. But the assessor's comparables, so if you're looking on page 18, the assessor's using 349 York Avenue, and you can see that York Avenue is actually, that building is actually connected to the convention center, which then is connected to the Skywalk system. And it actually has, if you look on page, the next page on 19, you'll see it's the Indian Company, far superior building, better location. It's got underground parking to the right of it. That's not comparable to the subject. And then finally, in the bottom, or second from the bottom, we've got 8155 4th Street, which I showed in the 5262 Princess that it was not labeled as a restaurant, but here the assessor is calling it a restaurant. It is, it's Riley's. And then we've got finally 9386 Donald, which is also a restaurant. Subject is not a restaurant. So that basically shows you that the comparables the assessors are using, especially buildings that are connected to the Skywalk, and everything I've shown you here shows that the rents the assessors using for that building are not indicative of market rent for that particular type of, that age and that condition of building. And that's my rebuttal, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And so any questions regarding the rebuttal?
I do believe on page 18, the property located on, sorry, I believe on Fort is currently a pub.
Is that a question for?
Oh, sorry,
the applicant?
not a question. Thank you. No questions.
Ms. Linklater, questions?
I have no questions for Mr. Rack. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Diamonds?
No questions, thank you.
And I have none, thank you. Desire for summation. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
After this, we have a 5-minute break.
Yeah, we'll do a summation first if Ms. Ho. Desire for summation?
Yep. So there's a little bit of issues regarding the leasable area of this property, and there's dispute about the rental rates that I understand. However, given that the lack of time prior to going into the hearing today, I was not able to clean up and offer a new recommendation or value provided by the model. So that's the unfortunate thing. However, I hope that the Board of Revision does understand that the time constraints regarding the review of the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rath, desire for summation?
No, thank you.
Okay, before we break, we do have one more property that we're dealing with, 120 Higgins, where there is a preliminary issue. So we will discuss that, and so we'll make it a little longer break in our discussion. Make it 10 minutes. We'll reconvene at 12:10. I thank you. I will call the hearing back to order. Regarding 120 Higgins, there was a late submission. It was not provided by 4:30 on the exchange date. However, due to the circumstances here, we will make an exception and allow it to be entered. So 120 Higgins, item number 8 on our docket. When you're ready, Ms. Assessor, we'll hear from you, please.
Right. So file number 24-363, we have the roll number 13096046900. Address is 120 Higgins Avenue. Roll year is 2025. Reference date is April 1st, 2023. Assessed value is $517,000. We have it currently assessed as a commercial retail store. This building has been built in different various partitions. So one part is built in 1912. The other part was built later, and then the last part was built in 1963, I believe. Zoning is multiple use. The land area is 16,000 square feet, 16,001 square feet. There's no basement area. Leasable area we have on record is 12,287 square feet. I did do an inspection with the representative. As you can see on my page 3, there's a nice view of the front and an aerial photo of where it's located streetwise. There is the front, inside the store on my page 4. And then page 5, there's more, I guess, items for storage for the shop. Page 6 is the back. There was a sale registered for this property back in December 2009 for $410,000. I'm not too sure if it's associated. And then I have my rent comparables on my page 8. All varying between $5 to $13.50 a square foot. So we have 177 Isabel, 944 Henry, 1000 Alexander, 125 Higgins Avenue, another one 125 Higgins Avenue. I believe the last two are actually owned or under the same tenant. If you go into my page 9, I have the leasable area is 12,287 square feet. Price per square foot is $4.47. We have a vacancy loss of 5%. Expenses at 3%, shortfall $7 per square foot, and an overall capitalization rate of 8.95% for an estimated value of $517,000. This is as it's valued as a retail space. However, it looks like it's more like a flex warehouse, like the issue again. If I try to enter the property as a flex warehouse in the model, it would change the parameters. The rental rate would change to $4.54 per square foot. The vacancy loss changes to 4%. Shortfall changes from $7 to $4 per square foot. Overall capitalization rate changes to 8.2%. Bringing the total market value as $610,000. So at the moment, I'm just going to defend the value at 517,000. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, questions for the assessor? You're muted, Mr. Rack.
Okay, sorry. So my question is that in all your properties that you presented today, you have comparables, but you're not using any of those comparables to come up with a new value. You're just defending the computer value, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now I'd like to, in all your briefs, if you go to page 15 and page 16, page 17, and then finally at page 18. And you haven't addressed this in any of your presentations. So I'm going to ask you, this page 18, what is this?
So I am currently an appraisal institute Canada candidate working towards an appraisal accreditation. So under QSPAP guidelines, I need to provide additional certification. At this moment, I was not able to. If I provide a new entirely new value of my own value, I would have to completely make a entire market appraisal narrative from scratch. So at the moment, I was only able to provide, at the time, evidence and information at the best of my knowledge prior to our inspection, information that I could find prior to the inspection. And I figured I could do corrections after our the inspection and provide information accordingly.
Well, this appears to me that you're trying to say that this signed document is an actual appraisal of property. Is that correct? That's what it appears to be. It looks like it says that the AIC appraiser has co-signed this appraisal report. He or she certifies, agrees that direct supervise the appraiser who prepared this appraisal report. So you stating that your brief today is an appraisal report?
Not an appraisal report, it's just a it's just a
Well, the document states that this is an appraisal report.
I'm rereading it myself again.
Because at the top of that page 18, you have, it's called a certification. And a certification is what you use when you're doing an appraisal of a property, and you're basically signing that you've done an appraisal report, a full appraisal report.
This is not a full. This is not a full appraisal report. This is more like a mass appraisal, a report in order to present to the Board of Revision regarding to what the mass model has generated.
Well, that's not what it says. It says that this is an appraisal report. So what did
Okay,
you say?
Mr. Rack, I think we get your point here.
All right. I mean, my point is that this isn't an appraisal report and this is misleading. And that's all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Dime, questions for the assessor?
Yeah, so you indicated that, I'm just verifying, that when you inspected, you thought that more than a retail store was a flex warehouse, and reevaluating it, you indicated that that would give you a higher value. So you're just at this point defending the value of the model. Is that correct?
Yes, at this point, I'm defending the model, the value of the model.
So the model picked everything then. It picked the rental that you utilized and per square foot, and also picked the capitalization rate.
Correct.
And that would be based on the age or the condition, or both?
Yes, correct.
Capitalization rate.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Linklater?
Yes, so Ms. Ho, your brief then is model driven, correct?
Correct, it is model driven.
So when exactly did you inspect this property?
July 24th, same day as our submission date for our evidence.
Okay. And out of curiosity, how long was your length of inspection? Just approximately.
We got there around noon, I believe, ish. Probably around a half an hour, I think. Mr. Rack can verify. It's roughly around that amount of time, I believe. I believe
Okay.
we were inspecting it over the lunch hour.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I understand you guys are busy. So given the inspection, and that this property, your brief was model driven, would you be offering a recommendation at all?
I do not have a recommendation. The recommendation, if I was providing, would have been based off of it being a flex warehouse according to the model. And
Okay.
the model provided 610,000.
Okay.
So
Nope, that's fine. Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I have no questions. Mr. Rack, we'll hear your evidence, please.
Okay, you can see on page 1, there's a picture of the outside of the building. They finally, the outside of the building was wood and it was finally rotting away. So they, in the meantime, before this picture was taken, they actually sided it. That siding is actually commercial siding that actually used on roofs. So they cleaned it up and they went over the front door used to have windows there. They went over the windows. So there's no longer windows in the building. If you go to page 2, you'll see that 3,000 square feet was built in 1912. Another 8,000 built in 1941, and 1,000 square feet, which is just the loading dock area, was built in 1963. So it's quite an old building and basically in original condition. So you'll see on page 2, those are pictures of the roof. And you can see the strapping. There was water penetration at one time. It was patched. If you go to page 3, you'll see in the older part of the building, it's all that's all planking floor. The tiles are coming off. So that's in original condition. You'll see that in the middle picture that the heating system is basically gas-fired radiators that are hanging from the ceiling. And in the shop area or the retail area, that's the same. If you go down to the next page, you'll see another shot in the retail area of heater. And you'll see there's an overview picture. So where it's that marker is, that's the part of the building that was built in 1941. Directly to the right of that, where it says Higgins. There's a little square there where there's cars parked. That's the loading area. That was the most recent piece that was built in 1963, 1,050 square feet. So the building is quite old and it's in basically original condition. Bottom of page 4, you'll see the Israeli Bridge to the right, and you'll see the King's Hotel to the left of it. They're actually renovating that hotel right now. That's why it looks the way it is. So not the best neighbors or location. So you'll see that the next page, page 5, you'll see there was a 26% increase in the property, which I think is a large increase for property in 2 years of this condition and its location. And if you go, basically, the only way to actually value this property would be through sales comparisons. So you'll see, you've seen these 3 comparisons before at Dufferin. You've got 2 on Main Street, which are in better location. And basically, I'm using the best comparable at 783 Main, which is most like the subject property. And again, it only has 14-foot high ceilings, 1 story. And so I'm coming up with the subject area of 12,268 square feet at 3692. I'm coming up with a value of 453,000. So the increase for 2025, I'm asking to go from 409 to 453. And that's my presentation.
Thank you. Ms. Ho, questions for the applicant?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Diamond?
So, Mr. Rack, are you saying that you don't think the income approach is appropriate? Do you think that direct sales approach is more?
Yes, I do, because of the age and the condition and location of the property. It's very hard to get comparables to a similar property location and the condition of the property being, as you see the inside, the ceiling and the floors. And yeah, I thought that the best comparison was just basically sales.
Okay, so what do you take issue with? The per square foot rental that's been attributed, or the cap rate, or both?
Both.
And what cap rate would you want to use? And what rent do you think is reasonable? And what basis do you have to afford another rental?
Well, I didn't supply any of that information for you, but give me 1 sec. I mean, as far as the rent goes, I mean, as one of my the other properties that I was showing in 52 and 62 Princess was renting in the $3 range, $309 a square foot for the place on 666 Ellis. You've got, as far as cap rates go, I mean, it is basically a flex warehouse, and if you're looking at flex warehouses cap rates, you're looking at cap rates for B that are as high as 7.5. So the 9% cap rate is probably applicable, but the rents are actually, I mean, if you use the $3.09 rent of that place on Ellis, it'd be far superior to the subject property, definitely. So I could tell you what I would think that would come to. So if you use the 12,287, and it was 309, I believe. So then you'd have basically 37,966 on 12,287. And if we use the 5% vacancy, that would give you 4,423, basically a 3% for expenses, and a cap rate of 8.96. That would give you basically
Okay, well, it doesn't really matter. You're taking issue with the not the cap rate, but with the rental, and you're indicating you think that
the rent.
Yeah, and you have one property only in all the city. How do we know that that rental on Isabel is market? I mean, you're using it over and over again. It seems to be low. from my vantage point, certainly with all the other comparisons. So how do we know that this one property that you picked on, the Rondex property, is a fair rental to utilize for your comparisons?
So I'm not picking the Rondex property.
Okay, I thought you
I
were,
was
sorry.
picking, yeah, so I mean, Adele's Electric. Basically, in Dell's Electric, the assessor used a property that was at, I'll tell you right now where it was. Or just give me 1 second, please. So on the Dell's property, I've got basically a property that was at 666 Ellis Street with a November 2019 to 1966. And this was an assessor's comparable in 2023, and it was at $390 a square foot. So at $390 a square foot, if you go back to the 52 Princess in my brief, I use that as comparable. It was at $390 a square foot. And that had parking, and that building was built in 1966. So I could have used that property at $390, but it was built in 1966, and it's far better condition, and it's got a compound next to it for parking. So the subject property would have to be under $390. If you're getting a 1966 building that's at $390, I mean, it's far superior to the subject property. So, and it's in a better location. So the subject property would have to be lower than $390. I just found that when I'm looking for rents, I mean, I don't have the same access to rents as the assessor has. Like, I'm surprised that the assessor is using the same comparables over. I mean, I had to use the same comparables because I don't have a lot of access to properties in that area and what the rents would be. But I think that basically the rent is too high. It should be lower. And if you look at it, I mean, it was a 26% increase. Now that's pretty substantial in an old building.
You
like
did
that.
more than
I mean,
answer my question, Mr. Rack. Thank you. I got your answer already. You're going to argue. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions. Is there a rebuttal for this?
I do have-
Mr. Rack?
Yes, sir. Yes, there is.
Mr. Chair, it has been distributed.
I'm sorry, it's there?
It should be there once the SharePoint is refreshed.
Okay. It shows up as two, item 8, applicant rebuttal 1 and applicant rebuttal 2, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Does the panel have both those rebuttals?
Yeah.
Mr. Diamond, do you have it as well?
No, my somehow I couldn't refresh my yeah, it wouldn't refresh for me. It says I got to rejoin the meeting.
Okay,
Hang on, let's see if I can do something about it. I'll try again.
okay. You have it, Ms. Ho? You have the rebuttal?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
just
not
wait
meant.
on this.
I got to hang on. It says click open workplace. I'm not sure what to do here. Update required. Okay, it's refreshing, I think. Sorry, it's doing so very slowly.
I can sympathize.
Would it be easier, if the secretary were to email those 2 files to you?
I think so. And then I'll just take them on the email if that can be done. Because I still
Is
have a
that
meeting.
possible?
I still have a meeting. Originally I didn't to close that. So as long as I don't have to reopen it, I think I can. If I get an email, I think I can open them.
We're emailing you right now.
Thank you.
Should be in your inbox in a moment, Mr. Diamond.
Okay, I'm waiting for it. Thanks. No, it's not here, Stephen. Oh, here we go. Okay, I think, yeah, I got it now.
You
Just
have
came
it?
in. Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Rack, just clarification, this rebuttal, these are the assessor's rent comparables that you're discussing, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. You may continue and present your rebuttal.
Okay, so you can see on page 1, we've seen this one before, is 177 Isabel, which is superior to the subject property with the parking and just the condition of the building. Retail area in there is pretty nice. I've been in there many times. They actually, Dexter, the owner, actually supported me in my racing career. So I've been in there many times. He's one of my sponsors. I know that building quite well. If you go to the second one, 944 Henry, which is G2 Logistics. You can see that building is far superior to the, or not far superior to the subject, but it's nothing like the subject. So if you look in the bottom, you'll see that it's got a huge parking area. The building is got extremely high ceilings, and basically it's a truck distribution center. So you can see the semi-trailers and all the overhead doors. So that property is nothing like the subject property. So that's not comparable. If you go to the down, scroll down to 1000 Alexandra, that's actually a commercial bakery. And if you scroll down, you'll see a picture of that building. And that again is nothing like the subject property. It's got loading docks. It has a parking lot in the back, and the building is nothing like the subject building. And finally, the last two, 4 and 5, 125 Higgins, which is just down the street of the subject property. You can go into the next page. You'll see with the labeled 1. This is an ad for this property a few years ago. So you can see that on the 125 Higgins Avenue office for rent, you see the bottom right-hand corner of that picture. It says 1 of 14. There's 14 pictures of that property. So you can just scroll down through there and you'll see photos of the interior with glass dividers for office space. And you'll see 5 of 14, that's the boardroom. And if you go down below, the next page, 6 of 14, you can see the building is extremely nice inside. In fact, they advertise that it has a water feature. So it's got a big water fountain in the middle of it. And if you go down to the next page, you'll see that it states 125 Higgins Avenue, office for lease. Beautiful renovated office building, 2 levels of office, approximately 38,290 square feet with 60 parking stalls, hardwood floors, some brick exposed walls, multiple offices, 3 boardrooms and break room, friendly and very comfortable work atmosphere with water feature, fully updated mechanical system. So that property there, if you keep scrolling down, you'll see pictures of the lunchroom, and then you'll see finally a picture of where you can drive trucks in. And you can see the bottom of the water feature. And again, another picture of the water feature in the above offices. So that building is nowhere near comparable to the subject property. And that indicates why it's 1346 and 1213 square feet, because it's a beautiful building. So you've got a service garage, you've got a basically truck service garage, you've got this building, all the comparables that the assessor has provided are nothing like the subject property. So in my opinion, the assessor has no comparables to basically, prove or back up the rent the computer models come up with. And that's my presentation on the rebuttal.
Thank you. Ms. Ho, questions regarding the rebuttal?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Diamond?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Linklater?
No questions, thank you.
I have none, thank you. Do you have a second part to your rebuttal?
Yes, I have a second part, and I just want to put it in as evidence. I'm not going to talk to it. It's called the rebuttal on the appraisal reports. Due to the fact that the assessor, I don't think she answered, unless I misunderstood completely what that certification was all about. But I'd like to put that into evidence, and what it is that it goes through from the Appraisal Institute of Canada, the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisals, and it's from the Sanders School of Business. And if you go to page 7, it's an appraisal report, and it basically outlines what an appraisal report looks like as far as introduction, premise appraisal, analysis, data collection, to have a certification of a value, which the assessors presented at the bottom page of each of the appeals today. That there's a certification of value according to USPAP rules, which it's not. And on page 9 of that report tells it you basically have to use highest best use, land value, cost approach, income approach, direct comparison approach, reconciliation, final opinion value, estimate exposure. It goes on and on and on. And then on page 10, I go through a few things of ethics and ethics rule violations of presenting such a document. And as I'm sure we've all seen appraisal reports, and appraisal reports can be like up to 3/4 of an inch thick. And I think the assessor maybe stated that that wasn't an appraisal report. I didn't really get what her answer was, but basically I just want that to be submitted as evidence. I spoke to it briefly, and the board panel can have a look at that after the hearing.
Thank you. Ms. Ho, any questions?
Is Mr. Applicant aware that there is also a mass appraisal standard that I have to follow? Currently the report is not under real properties appraisal standards or as an appraisal narrative. And as for ethics standards, I hope that me being forthcoming during the hearing, explaining the issues regarding that I saw, the submission, the most important part, unfortunately, was trying to submit information in a timely manner, even though it may have not been correct at the time without having proper availability to review all the information. Given that we didn't have enough, either of us had enough time to, because we had inspected on the submission date. Thank you.
And my only concern, Mr. Chairman, is that it appears that one document says certification is that it looks like it's stating it's an appraisal report. So that's why I had to put this together. Maybe you know what? I won't talk about it anymore. That's my final say on that.
No, thank you. Ms. Linklater, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Diamond?
No questions, thank you.
And I am good as well. Request or desire for a summation, Ms. Ho?
No desire for a summation, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rack?
No, thank you.
Thank you. And that will conclude that matter. Mr. Rack, those are all the properties that you're representing today. Thank you for your presentations. And the orders will come in due course. And you may leave the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have, do we have someone representing 843 Bella Road?
Yes, we do.
Would you swear the party in then, please?
Yes. Mr. applicant, please stand. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay, I'm sorry, I did not catch your name, sir.
Amandeep Singh Puri.
Thank you. We do have a preliminary issue with this property. The assessors, what is your recommendation, Ms. Assessor?
There is a recommendation to, based off of the Municipal Assessment Act, burden of proof, sorry, I can't talk. The assessor requests that the burden of proof to be placed on the applicant for non-cooperation based off of section 53, 3, sub B of the Municipal Assessment Act. And if a reduction in assessment is ordered, that it will follow based off of section 54, 3.2 of the Municipal Assessment Act. If you would like to see, I have provided on my brief, on my submission, on page 15.
I'm sorry, just give us a moment here.
Yep.
Page 15, and the applicant has a copy of your brief?
I'm not too sure. That would be
He
something
does not.
the Board of Revision would be in charge of.
I'm sorry,
Mr. Chair, he does not have a copy of the brief because no evidence was submitted.
okay. Go ahead, Ms.
Okay.
Assessor.
So page 15, we have a generated report from Canada Post. There's a tracking number from that was sent to a request for an income and expense form. Delivery date was June 12th, 2013. And if you see on my page 16 about the detail of the delivery, June 9th, item was processed, June 12th, item was delivered, June 12th, delivered, June 12th again at 1:23, signature available. And features and options signature was required. And then further, from page 17 to page 20 is just a copy of the income expense mailer that we sent out.
Okay. Mr. Applicant,
Yes,
did you follow what's happening here at this point?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything what they have said at all. I didn't really catch anything.
Okay, so the department has sent a courier through Canada Post requesting an income and expense mailer. because we did not receive a response from the income and expense mailer, we're asking for a non-compliance. So we're asking from the board to the panel if there is going to be any penalty, if there could be that you be presenting first, and if there is a reduction in value, that if they agree that if there's a penalty, that the new value that will be in place will be for 2026 rather than instead of 2020, both 2025 and 2026. I'm just presenting on my evidence that that Canada Post did send out the income and expense mailer to the property owner, and it was received.
What did they say? I have no idea. I'm sorry.
So what they're asking of you is that the assessors presented evidence requesting that the panel grant non-cooperation. So the assessment and taxation department sent you an income and expense questionnaire requesting that you fill it out and return it,
Okay.
and they are arguing that you did not do that.
Well, it's because I never do anything. It's my accountant who does everything every year. I have never filled that form ever in my life in last 10 years. It's just my accountant does it, but I mean, if I have received it, I would have told my accountant right away. And every year, I think I get that. I think every second year, the questionnaire thing, I think, yeah, I do receive it. But it's just like I inform my accountant every year, who just like he's on Proventure, but I'm not sure if he has given that to you or not. I have no idea. But we just pay him to do everything.
Okay, so you're saying that it was your accountant's responsibility, but this was sent to you, was it not?
Yes, whenever we get the form of the questionnaire, I pass on that information and letter to my accountant every year. And we request them to fill that out and give it to the city or whoever is requesting that part. And we did get that this year also, and I gave it to him, like I don't know how to fill that too. To be honest.
Okay, Mr. Diamond, do you have questions of either party regarding?
No, I don't, but thank you, Mr. Chair, for asking.
Thank you. Ms. Linkletter? Questions of either party regarding this?
I don't. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And I don't either. We will recess and the board will make a determination on whether we're going to grant the assessor's request or not. So if you would please, Ms. Secretary,
Yes.
put us in camera. Thank you. I will call the hearing back to order. The panel has discussed this, and it is our decision that we are going to grant the assessor's request to reverse the onus and to apply penalties if applicable. So what that means, Mr. Puri, is that the onus is on you. You would present first, then the assessor would have an opportunity to question you on your evidence, and then the panel would as well. And then the assessor will present their evidence. You'll have an opportunity to question them, as well as the panel question the assessor. And then our decisions will be made based on the evidence presented by both parties.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Puri, the floor is yours. You can give us a verbal presentation as to why you think, well, first of all, it's the assessed value and the classification that you've appealed. You don't believe that it should be a class code 60 property, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you can give us your information regarding why it shouldn't be class code 60 and also why it shouldn't be the value that's been placed upon it for assessment purposes. Do you have a, yeah, please go ahead.
So first thing is, when I have spoke to city regarding the property taxes, they told me my building has a special classification. It's residential mixed something with, I think, class 60, as you have described. On the basis of that, my building is not even a commercial building, the way they are charging us the taxes. The first reason is if it's a commercial building, then I do understand that city has a right to charge me the property taxes according to the commercial classification. At the moment, it's the residential building. It's just, there's no basement, no second level, it's just a ground floor where we have just a store on it. That store is being like really old since, as it's been mentioned, 1965. And we haven't done a major renovation ever in last 10 years since I've been there. And the reason why I'm saying the value is down of our building is the first thing, the lot value in that area. There's no lot of commercial buildings out there, a mixed building in that area. There are only two. One is mine and there's one on Strathcona. My land is like 1,800 square feet, and it's just there's a 4 walls and just what do you call that, shingles on top. It's just 4 walls. There's nothing major, a room or a big washroom, full washroom in there. The first thing, basis on that, I don't think it has the right value of $211,000 just for the land and building. The lot value in that area, which is 25 by 99, those lot value is almost $80,000 to $85,000. And those lot value went little up at the time of COVID. But now the real estate market has went down, or stable is for now, but as of now, the value of that lot, 1,800 square feet, is not, with land and building, I don't feel it's $211,000. It's not. If I would say I'm living in there, or if we have a room or a full washroom, I might consider that value. I have called the real estate guy in order to give me the value of land and building as is, in which we haven't done anything new except the brand new shingles. That's it. We have only done shingles in last 10 years. The real estate guy, who I don't even know, it's from a different community. I called him and he gave me a value of land and building of $150,000 as of today because of the land size. That's the first thing that I'm like appealing for, that regarding the value. Second thing, I was appealing for the property taxes. My property taxes are going so high. I know the mill rate changes every second year.
Right.
I
Mr.
understand
Perry,
that part.
Mr. Perry, sorry, I'm going to stop you there. We're not dealing with the taxes at all today. It's the
Oh,
assessed value that we're dealing with.
okay.
So you've told us why you think the value should be lower than what the assessment department has valued it at. Was there anything further that you wanted to discuss on the assessed value of the property?
No, there's nothing else. I mean, my property has a mixed commercial, classification. It doesn't have the full commercial C1 zoning or something, classification on property assessment anywhere, even on the website. I know you guys are not dealing with the property taxes, but like that is also one of the major point. It's in my mind. But that's okay if you guys don't discuss or deal with that. The value should be less because of the land value, and it is just a 4 wall with the frame on top. That's it. It has nothing major in it.
Okay. And your estimate of value is what?
And there is no garage at the back. It's just a 4 walls. with the gravel on it.
Thank you. Ms. Ho, questions for the applicant?
No questions.
Ms. Linkletter,
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Diamond?
Yeah, so Mr. Puri, you bought the property, was that you in December 2015?
15 years, yes.
And according to land titles records, you paid $238,000 for it then?
Sorry,
And
coming in.
according to those office records, you paid $238,000 for it then?
238.
Yeah, okay. And I see by the photograph that the city has in their evidence, which so I see a photograph of the frontage of the buildings. I see where it is, and I've driven by that building many times. But it seems to be, so you operate a grocery store,
Convenience.
cannabis shop,
Convenience and cannabis, yes.
and vaping and things like that.
It's medical cannabis, medical only.
Okay. So it's been used as a commercial, for a commercial venture then? It's not
Yes,
residential.
we started cannabis in 2023. Medical cannabis.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
And sorry, one more thing. I want to explain that when we bought that building for 238 in 2015, that was including the inventory, land, and building and trade name in there. It's 4 different things in that one full purchasing price.
So if that's the case, you're saying you paid land transfer tax on $238,000, but not all of it was a ship of the building, because you'd have to sign a document stating the value of the property as being $238,000 at the time to be registered. You can't register or transfer land until you certify the value. Right?
I didn't really get that part.
Who's your, okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, that was just surmised by me. You don't remember. Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Ho, we'll hear from you, please.
Perfect, my turn. So file number 24-229. We're looking at roll number 13003979000. This is address 843 Valor. The roll year is 2025. Reference date is April 1st, 2023. The aspect of under dispute is the value under dispute is 211,000, and classification is under dispute at 60, which is classification for other property. Should I go through why we had determined it as classification of 60 first? Or go through evaluation first?
Let's do the valuation first, please.
Okay. We have it valuing under as a commercial store. Actual year built is 1932. Effective year built is 1965. We have the zoning as residential medium. The land area as 1,841. There's no basement. We have the leasable area as 1,110. And if we go to my page 3, we can see an overall look of the property. It's located at the corner of Valor and St. Matthews. There's a front picture of the property on page 4. I did an inspection on July 23rd, 2024. There's a front, it's been repainted. There's a gravel pad in the back. There's inside, there's items for purchase. It's more like akin to a convenience store with paraphernalia. And then there's a back room that's not for public. So if you can see on my page 7, there is a subject sale history. December of 2015, there is a sale and sworn and sale price of 238,000. I spoke to the owner regarding to the sale. He said it included the purchase of the business and inventory, according to him. I have rent comparables on my page 8. There's a small square footage for 600 square feet, built in 1920 for $20 a square foot in Wolseley. The rest, so if you go to my 2 main streets, they're one of them is a convenience store rental. It's the 1430. And the Selkirk is another convenience store rent at $14. If you look at my page 9, there's a breakdown of the market income. This is assessed as valuation as retail, using a leasable area of 1,110 square feet, using a market rent of $14.40. We have a 5% vacancy loss. We have 3% for expenses, $7 per square foot for shortfall, and we're using an overall capitalization rate of 6.8% to get a final value of 211,000. If you go to my next page, I believe it's my page 12 or my page 11, I have comparable sales. So these are sales in around the market, just around the market, around our reference time, our reference period, up to our reference period. One for 1475 Arlington. It's a little bit bigger than our subject. Building area is roughly a similar square footage. Year built is 1911, sold for 250,000. The price per sale price for building area is $169 per and 15 cents per square foot. 680 watt. It's a little bit further away. We're looking at a building area of 1,642 square feet. It's a newer built in 1960. Sold for 439,000. Looking at a sale price per building area of $267 square foot. We have 878 Ellis. That's close by. It's a bit bigger at 2,000 square foot and 226 a square foot. Built in 1926 for 260,000. Price per square foot for the building area is $116.80. And then we have 463 Furby. It's a little bit closer to downtown. Sold for 450,000. And for sale price per building area is $150 and 70 square feet. So I'm just arguing that based on the square foot price, it's in line with this comparable sales, and I'm also arguing that the rent comparables look like it's fairly supported. Now, in regards to the classification 60, if City of Winnipeg has a variety of property classifications. We have 10, 20. Those are for residential properties. If there's 1 to 4 dwelling units for residential 1, residential 20 is for 5 units or more. So it's not being used for residential. So it eliminates the property cannot be considered for residential 10 or 20. 30 and 31 is for farm properties. This is not being used for farming. And 3 star is also a farm property special class. That is also not farm. This is not an institutional property. or designated higher education property. So it's not 40 or 41. It's not a pipeline, so it's not 51, and it's not a railway, so it's not 52. It's not a 70 because it's not a designated recreational property. And it's not a residential 3, which is for using for it's a marker for condominium. It's for condos and cooperative housing for residential 3 or class code 80. So the final use, the appropriate classification would be 60 other. That is all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you submit those classifications as evidence?
No, I did not.
Mr. Perry, do you have questions for the assessor? The evidence that she just presented.
So, yeah, I have a question to ma'am. That first of all, they would have a classification mentioned in the comparable. Okay. Second thing, what you have compared is all over the city, not even a part of my area, St. Matthew, except one, which is 112 St. Matthew. The comparable that ma'am has done, it's Arlington, Monroe, and Spence. It's way far up from that my spot, subject property, I would say. Even if you're trying to build a brand new, nowadays it's cost like $200 per square feet. But right now, what I have got, the per square feet value is $190 of my current property. I don't think it's nowhere is close to even 190 at all. If I'm trying to spend money on my property, outside building, which is like totally damaged, if you look at it, the walls are falling apart. There's a big cracks on the painting. At the back is not even like fully functional. Door isn't working. Like I have to spend almost like 30-40 grand in order to make it like a brand new, close to 190 per square feet. That value is way too high than what I'm expecting, like 190 per square feet. It's a little high for me. I understand you have done the comparable and you have done your best, but I would say if the comparable was done to my area, that will give you the best idea of the per square feet value.
Thank you. Ms. Linklater, questions for the assessor?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Diamond?
No questions, thank you.
Just one for me. You've given us some comparable sales, but you haven't given us a value based on comparable sales, have you?
No, I'm just using the comparable sales to support the current assessment.
I see. And what is the subject property then, sale price per building area?
Just give me a second. I thought I put it in. I'm sorry. Oh, whoops.
But one more point.
I got $190.09 per square foot.
Sorry, $190.
$0.09 per square foot.
Okay, and you feel that falls in the range of your comparable sales?
Yeah, given it's also like given the economies scale of economy. I'm sorry, this is a long hearing. Given the scale of economies of scale, this is a smaller building in comparison. The subject is smaller in building area in comparison to my comparables. They're ranging between They're at least, some of them are at least 200 square feet in comparison to another one that's almost double or triple in some cases.
I
I did
see.
try to find smaller commercial stores for sale.
Okay. Thank you. And your classification, you're saying that because it doesn't fall into any other category, it falls into other, which is class code 60,
Correct.
and all of your comparisons, your rent comparables, those are all class code 60 properties?
They should be.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Perry, did you wish to make a summation?
Yes, I would like to tell you one more thing. As I have got the value on the paper for $211,000 for land and building only. Just to get that value, even at the moment, the real estate guy told me that I need to spend a lot of money in order to bring that value on the table. Even if you try to sell the land and building as is for 211, there's no buyer in the market to purchase that property for that price. There's no one. What they have given me is $150,000 as is. And the cost to make it like a little more brand new or renovation, the cost to make it like around that I'm spending on that building was $35,000 to $40,000, which is including the stucco work, the framing work, which is very old in 1960s, the gravel at the back, and the stones at the front, which will bring the value close to 190 to 200,000 if I'm gonna spend that much money. But I'm not spending that much money. It's just like a store that I'm running for the community. The comparable that you have done is the high-end areas, Monroe Corner, St. Matthew, other part, Spence, a lot of foot traffic. In my area, half of the year, the city is doing the construction right at the corner. It's been 8 years now. Every single year, they block that my spot, the corner of Valor and St. Matthew, for 4 months. Every year. My business is zero from last 8 years. I have to spend a lot of money in order to bring that value up and to make some money out of that business. I cannot prove what city is doing out there, but if you look at your system, I'm pretty sure you will find out from last 8 years, that corner has been blocked for 3 to 4 months. There was one time that corner was blocked for 6 months, 2019 or 2018. It's not just that block part I'm saying the value should be down, but I'm giving you the overall value and the situations in which I'm not able to do the business properly. And I need to spend a lot of money on that building to bring that land and building value close to 190 after spending almost like $40,000.
Thank you. Ms. Ho, did you wish a summation?
No, thank you. Thank you for the offer, though.
Okay. Thank you very much. So that will conclude this matter. Thank you very much, Mr. Perry, for your presentation and your attendance, and you will receive the board's order in writing in due course. I thank you for appearing today. And with that, thank you. So you may leave. Thank you. And we have heard all the items that are scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I know that we're still probably on tape, but I have to make a quick phone call because I was supposed to be at an appointment